Hi, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of my new podcast. I'm going to be talking about the games that I've been playing on my Twitch channel and inviting some friends to discuss them with me. I am Mandersnatch, also known as Mandy, and with me today I have a few friends.
Hi there, I'm Leona, also go by Star Mongoose. I'm also a Twitch streamer and a big fan of Mandy.
Hey, I'm GRIEVER, also known as GRIEVER. I'm also a massive Mandersnatch fan, and you could probably catch me in a few of our streams. I stream myself, so you could follow me on GRIEVER Twitch TV.
Hey everyone, this is CYNICA. I guess I like Mandy. She's alright, I guess. Yeah, she's okay. I'm also a streamer and also a good friend of all the people on the podcast. I'm really glad to be here and really excited to get started. Let's do this.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining me. So to start out, I just wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about what's been going on, what you've been playing on your streams, or anything you have to plug, projects you're doing. So I'll start. I have been playing Final Fantasy VII Remake since it came out
Surprise.
2.5 months ago. I finished the game probably a month or two ago now. Not two, definitely not two. Probably a month and a half ago. And I've been playing it on hard mode ever since. But since then, I've been playing a ton of Persona 5 Royal, Persona 4 Golden.
Yes.
I just started The World Ends With You. I've been doing more gaming than I realized. A lot of RPGs, super fun. And I guess I'll plug my Twitch channel. You can follow me at twitch.tv/Mandersnatch. Really happy to see everyone there, and I love chatting with all of you guys. And I'm excited for this new podcast series. We'll see how this goes. I'm a little nervous. It's my first time doing a podcast, but I'm a huge fan of podcasts in general, and I'm very excited to have more of a conversational tone to talk about this game.
Absolutely, and no need to be nervous. You're sounding great, honestly.
Aw.
Well, I've been playing Pokemon Nuzlocke on my stream lately, and they have been a lot of fun. And I think it's been Mandy's first introduction to Pokemon, really.
It's been amazing to watch you.
Because it adds an extra level of drama, so it's been great to watch.
Oh, I'm glad. Yeah, they've been super fun, super dramatic. There've been a lot of deaths, but it's been really fun. We failed our Fire Red Nuzlocke, but we're doing Heart Gold now, and we're very positive. No one's died yet.
Fingers crossed.
But the other game, my main game that I'm playing on the stream is Kingdom Hearts, and that's completely blind for me, the first one. And I'm actually really enjoying it, to be honest. I'm enjoying it a lot more than I thought I would.
Oh man, your Kingdom Hearts streams are just so good.
I have been playing The Last of Us on stream lately, and I kind of wanted to complete it before The Last of Us 2 came out, but that's not happening. And I'm kind of glad because I think what's going on with the game is a little bit controversial at the moment. So I'm looking forward to actually getting to The Last of Us 2 later on when things are kind of calmed down a bit, and kind of looking forward to the end of The Last of Us, the first one. And off stream, I've been playing a lot of Dark Souls lately, and I kind of I've got the whole Soulsborne series to get through. I've played Dark Souls 1 before, but it's been a few years since I've played it, so I'm kind of playing it. It's kind of fresh now. And I'm going to move on to 2, 3, and then Bloodborne, and then probably Sekiro later. So a lot of From Software stuff. It's been a ton of fun. And hopefully we can talk about that at some point in the future.
Oh, that would be cool.
Oh, me playing Dark Souls? Are you joking?
I would watch it.
I want to see it. I want to see it now.
I think everybody should play this game. All the series in general.
Oh, interesting.
For sure. CYNICA?
I guess I'm up. So I've been playing Final Fantasy VI blind because apparently everyone has to play it blind from time to time. So I just went ahead and got that one out of the way.
It's not getting it out of the way. That's a great game. Also,
okay.
Watching you play it has been so fun.
not getting out of the way because it's definitely one of the top 3 Final Fantasy games of all time for me already, and I'm not even done with it yet, which is probably speaking volumes for the game. Absolutely love it.
I think it's the quintessential kind of like SNES game for me out of all of them, let alone Final Fantasies. It's probably up there at the top, in my opinion.
Oh, and absolutely, if Mandy or if Leona, either one tells you that Terra is the best girl, they're wrong. Celeste is the best girl. It's close. It's close, but it's Celeste.
It doesn't have to be a competition. Why can't we like both?
Tifa era.
But it does. Everything's a competition.
Edgar's best boy.
Okay, now you're just wrong, but that's okay. Anyway, love Final Fantasy VI. Any game that I can play as Moogles is pretty much the top tier game anyway. I think we can all at least agree on
Hell
that.
yeah.
But
For sure.
There we go. That's
Absolutely
the new,
loving
can
it.
you pet the dog? Can you play as the Moogle?
Exactly. Can you play as the Moogle? Everyone needs to ask these questions. If I'm playing The Last of Us and I can't play as a Moogle, automatically minus
I
1
agree.
point. Sorry. Whatever. Anyways, just Final Fantasy VI and Kingdom Hearts. That's about it. It's not my first time playing Kingdom Hearts. Honestly, only reason I'm playing Kingdom Hearts, Leona was playing it, and her playthrough is so fantastic that I was like, I gotta play it again. I just gotta do it again because it's that good.
Love
So
it.
that's all I've been playing.
Awesome. Well, great. Thanks, guys. So today's main discussion is all around Final Fantasy VII Remake. We've all played it. Yes, and we all have many thoughts. It's taken us this long to get together to record this podcast, partly because there's so much to digest and to think about.
Yeah,
really
I think
is.
it's good that we've waited kind of a long time, so we could like
I
kind
think
of
so too,
like
yeah.
digest our thoughts and probably come to terms with a lot of things about it.
Yeah, so we've had a lot of time to spend in our own heads thinking about this game, and I think it's a good time to do it. All right, so what are your overall thoughts of the remake of Final Fantasy VII? You know, it's this huge title, so many people's favorite games or introduction into Final Fantasy or JRPGs in general.
Yep.
It had incredible shoes to fill, you know, with the original. What did you guys think of the remake?
It's a complicated emotion, to be honest.
It is.
It's a feeling of so much joy and love, and a feeling of so much disappointment at the same time for me. There's parts where I thought, wow, this is amazing. Probably one of the best experiences I've had in an RPG in the last
agree.
5-10 years. And then at the other side of it is like, oh, but I'm so much wasted potential. It's sort of, it's complicated.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because I had the same thought like going through probably most of the game, thinking this is amazing. It's like it's just kind of like crescendoing, like constantly on the up throughout the whole game up until literally probably the last like maybe 10 hours. And then it was like, it really changed my view of it. Because I was like, this is the game of the decade, 100%. I haven't had so much fun playing a game like this in so long. And then, we're going to talk about the ending later on. But like when it was like over and done with, I was kind of like, the feeling was like, it wasn't underwhelming because I had a great time. It was just like, what if kind of thing. Like, what if it was more like the original? I don't know. It's kind of, not underwhelming, but kind of, there was a little bit something lacking, in my opinion.
Yeah, you both made such good points there, where most of the game, you know, I enjoyed it so much. I loved everything about the combat, and so many things were handled with such care, and the characters were just so thoughtfully done, and their interactions were so genuine, and it just felt so right. And then at the same time, there were parts where I was just like, but this is wrong. This doesn't feel good.
You got like those fleeting moments right throughout the game, and then you could sort of just like brush them off, like thinking, well, they were just kind of like they want to go in a little bit of a different direction for certain parts, or like expand certain scene or it's like small moments in the original that maybe you interpreted differently when you played the original. but then you kind of see the direction they were going towards, like the end of it, and then it kind of makes sense.
Right, but so many times throughout the game, just little things like Aerith going to save Marlene, and it's like, I loved seeing that.
That was such a
wouldn't
good
have
scene.
expected that. Yeah, something that they added that it just, they clearly know what they're doing. Everything they did was very intentional. And then, yeah, other things, they take a risk, and sometimes I think the risk paid off, and sometimes I think they kind of missed the mark. But just so much of the game I absolutely loved, and then it's at the same time shocking to see some of the other things.
I feel so weird being on the side of the fence where I have very little bad things to say about the game. I mean, honestly, with my username cynical, it's weird being the person that's so positive about this game.
Has someone kidnapped the real Cynica? That's what
apparently, because whenever I played this game, you could tell that the developers had an immense amount of passion for the actual game itself. Like, there were so many minute details that you would just not get if you didn't love this game or love the original. And that has been an amazing experience.
Yeah, the intention was definitely like in the same kind of spirit as the original, which I appreciate a lot.
Oh, absolutely. And like the entire time I was playing this game, like I felt those same emotions and those same feelings that I remember doing 20 years ago, give or take now. And God, I loved almost every second of it.
Yeah. It's hard to go back to my first playthrough, but that's basically exactly how I was up until the very end. And I do have some thoughts on the end that are not all positive, but still pretty positive in general. But yeah, the whole game, it was not just like an amazing story being told, a story that I love. It's also so fun. It's just like some of the best experiences I've had playing a game in a long time.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and I think whilst we were all kind of like going like through the game, and I know I definitely did this, like when I got to like certain parts of the game, I was just like so excited and like giddy from them that I would immediately like just open up Twitch and watch a bunch of VODs of like that same part of the game that I've played through, and it just like it would fill me like with so much joy. Just like seeing other people's kind of raw reactions to that, and like that pretty much went through the whole game like that, and it kind of like magnified my enjoyment of it too, which I guess a lot of people do, and I mean that's why Twitch exists, right? But then it's kind of really weird. It gets to like this cutoff point at the game, and Mandy said like that's like when the beginning of the end, I guess, of the game, you could call it, and then those kind of emotions and feelings change drastically. It's almost like two different games. It's weird. It's kind of like hard to explain it.
What was that point for you? What was the cutoff point?
Definitely, I enjoyed a lot of the Shinra building, but Hojo's lab, I would say. From that point onwards, it was just like, when I was playing it, I kind of like was optimistic, and I was like, I don't know what to think about this, but hey, like, I guess they just wanted to expand it a lot more. But then gameplay wise, it was very, not grindy, just like tedious getting through that. It felt like it was filler, yeah. Definitely felt like it was filler. There was no need to make it as long as it was. And then I was giving them the benefit of the doubt, but then kind of went off the rails from that point onwards.
The only filler I felt like was throughout the entire game, and one of the only things that I really, really complained about is the side quests felt like a great addition, and I was glad to have them there, but they felt like an afterthought. They felt like something that was kind of tacked on to an already finished project. Like, they wanted them to be there, but they didn't really connect with the entire world and atmosphere.
Because I wanted to talk about that as well, because it seemed like they only added side quests as a thing, because thinking, oh, most open world RPGs have side quests, so I guess we better add these to this game too. And it's like, it didn't really need it. And we could say, yeah, filler, add a few extra hours to the game. I don't think so. I think they had like an idea of what they wanted to do with the game, but it didn't feel consistent since you only had 2 chapters that had, or 3, I guess, chapters that had side quests, and they were literally, those chapters were mostly only side quests, which is kind of disappointing too.
I think that, yeah, that's the biggest issue I had with the side quests. It's that they were very focused in those specific 3 chapters, and those 3 chapters are just side quest chapters. It's not a sprinkle of side quests throughout. Something optional comes up that you can choose to do or not do. It's just, all right, well, you could go save Aerith, or you could do a bunch of side quests. Which one are you going to do?
That was a big problem for me, and that's where I think my personal cut-off points for where I felt like the game was very solid and game of the year for me to very poorly paced and written was just after the pillar falls, and instead of going to save Aerith, like Mandy says, you go to an underground facility under Sector 7, and that whole point to me felt very, we've got to add another dungeon. There's got to be more, because we've got to expand the runtime.
Let's add these cool boss fights things that not got to do with anything got to do with the original game.
Yeah, I think it sacrificed the pacing of the story for more playtime, and I don't know if that was quite the right direction for me.
I agree. And there were some side quests that I did genuinely enjoy. Those were mostly the wall market ones, and specifically the ones that related to kind of like getting the dress choices, basically. And those I found to be more enjoyable because it seemed like they were relevant.
Right.
The ones that were just very much a side optional thing that didn't have any bearing on this very pressing matter at hand, those were the ones that were just a little like, I could really take or leave them.
I'm just going to mention that the wall market, I mean, the original, you kind of did the same kind of thing, right? You had like a couple of, not side quests, but a couple of extra like errands that you have to do to get that dress. And the wall market chapter, kind of those side quests kind of follow suit from that. So it was like a good throwback to the original. And I guess that's why maybe it feels a little bit more organic.
I think of it as akin to a burrito. Everyone loves a burrito.
No,
there are not many people who
You mean a wrap?
eat burritos. But here's the thing. If you bite into a burrito and it's all sour cream, baby, I don't want that burrito anymore. I love sour cream in small doses here and there. When I get to choose to bite into that sour cream, it's got to be part of the whole package. It's got to be part of the story, and it's got to feel like it's part of it. But whenever they are sectioned off in the game, it feels like less of a game and more of a chore. Like, you have to go out of your way to do these things that, honestly, I couldn't care less about, because right now Aerith is being kidnapped and I should be doing that instead. Why am I doing all this other stuff when my girl is in danger? I gotta go save her, and that's kind of what it felt like.
Yeah, totally agree.
I think it's just that, like, just what Leona mentioned, that it's the pacing problem. Like, it seems like the story is just like ramping up constantly, like from the very beginning up until that point. Minus, I mean, what I don't, Sector 7 Slums is fine because it's kind of the beginning of the game, and it's kind of good, like in a tutorial kind of way. It's kind of good to get you like familiar with the area and the NPCs and stuff, and I guess a bit of world building. Side quests are kind of okay, but then when the kind of story just like ramps up and like accelerates throughout until you get to kind of wall market, not so bad. But after, like Leona said, the pillar collapses, and then you just have to do all these side quests. And we're like, we gotta save Midgard. What's going on?
Completely agree. I did want to quickly mention that I do believe, so LEONA, GRIEVER, and CYNICA all played the original game a very long time ago as children, and have maybe more of a nostalgic point of view than I would. I just played the game, the original, for the first time a year ago. So I just wanted to quickly mention that we have two different kind of viewpoints here, and everyone has their own personal attachment to the original game and would have reasons for wanting to change things or keep things exactly the same. So just wanted to add that perspective as we go into this discussion.
It is important, and it's funny how, like, even though me, CYNICA, and GRIEVER all played it as kids and have a nostalgia, we all still have, like, different sort of takeaway. Like, CYNICA is still overall very positive about this game, and GRIEVER and me maybe more on the cynical side, but even then I think we've got parts that we enjoy differently and parts we dislike differently, and then we've got Mandy, who's just basically, like, I don't want to say a newcomer, but like a newcomer to the series as a whole. And you've got a whole different experience, but we all kind of still just, it all boils down to this love of Final Fantasy VII at the end of the day, and we all have such valid and great points to make about it, I think.
For sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's also very fair to say, despite a lot of us, me, GRIEVER, and LEONA, and even Mandy to even more of a degree at this point, actually, even though we love Final Fantasy VII, and I think we can all agree the original was probably one of our favorite games.
Definitely.
But even though it's not that I want it to stay the same, because I don't want it to stay the same. I don't want it to be the same. I don't even care if it's the same game. It's not what I'm asking for. It's just I still want that heart and soul to be in it, and I think it is, but I still think it's important that we criticize the things we love, maybe even more so than we criticize the things that we don't like.
Yeah, because we want it to succeed at the end of the day. Something that's so close to us, we want it to be good, and we want as many people as possible to experience that same kind of joy that we had from the game, the original as well as the remake, because at the end of the day, we did enjoy most of it.
Yeah, very well said. I want to talk a little bit about the characters and how they're portrayed in this game, kind of compared to how they were in the original, but also, their interactions with each other, because for me, some of that I absolutely loved, and those were some of my favorite parts of the game. And then there were other times where it was just like, really? That's the direction they chose to go with the characters? What are your thoughts, you guys?
I think character development is the game's strongest suit for me personally. Maybe up there with combat. Yeah. But I think the characterization of the main cast, really good apart from one person. And I think if you know me, you know who I'm talking about. And I don't think Aerith, I think Aerith was handled very, sort of, she's the Aerith we know, but I also think she was treated sort of as a plot mover and something like
a
that.
crutch.
Just like she was less of a person sometimes and more of just a plot being.
I agree.
I think all the other characters, I think Cloud is my favorite characterization. Personally, I think he really was brought to life.
I think what's crazy about that is that in the original, and obviously we have a lot more story in the original because it's like the full story, right, up from beginning to the end. And Cloud's development is, in my opinion, one of the best kind of protagonist development in most of gaming, probably. One of my favorite, at least. And I was so pleasantly surprised in the remake about, like, they still had that same kind of development with him. I kind of was doubtful because of, voice acting can be kind of hit and miss, or like people's interpretations are very different when you get to like text-based dialogue to voice. But I think they absolutely nailed it, and I've even perhaps exceeded it, because it's just so like his expressions, and not even the dialogue, because a lot of times he just doesn't say anything, but like the expressions in the game is just so on point with how I interpreted his character in the original that I can't have any more superlatives for him and his character in the remake that I can think of, to be honest.
What you're saying is, nailed it. I know. Moving on.
Exactly.
Yes,
CYNICA,
that's a good line.
CYNICA, yes.
CYNICA had the best reaction on stream. I hope the VOD is still up, because it is so good. Yeah. It's so good for that line alone and your reaction to it.
That was probably one of my favorite parts, like watching people's reactions to that. It's probably the highlight of that whole chapter. Wall Market, apart from the side quests, just the ending, at least, of Wall Market is just amazing. Such a good part of the game.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and the thing about Cloud, though, is Cloud's reactions aren't even really the highlight. It's the contrast between whenever he's who he is as a person, as who we know him as, and then the sudden changes that you see by him reacting to those around him. Cloud isn't strong by himself. Cloud isn't a great character by himself, but the way that he interacts with the other cast is fantastic.
So
Absolutely.
True. Yeah, I agree with that. Watching him change over time is really effective. They do it so well. Like, I mean, some of it's more obvious, things like Aerith's high five, or depending on which scene you get in chapter 14, him reaching out to hug Tifa. I got the Tifa scene, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, things like that, they do it really well, where they do show it a little more obviously in those scenes, but even like small things over time, you see Cloud just like coming into his own a little bit more, or at least, you know, trusting these people more, realizing that he has relationships with these people. And I really enjoyed that, watching his character.
Absolutely. It's so well
Yeah,
done.
I agree, yeah.
And I don't think we should discount that to just Cloud either. I mean, you see that throughout the entire cast, and that's like Leona said. This is probably what the game does best: character development, character design, and also the voice cast did an absolutely amazing job bringing these characters that we only know from text and sprites on a screen to life. Like, they did it so perfectly, and I have nothing bad to say. Yeah, you're right. Aerith at some points does kind of feel like a plot device, but the little moments that we do have with Aerith where she's not
cute.
a plot device, fantastic. Absolutely great. And Barrett, and I cannot go without saying Marlene is probably my favorite voice actor
Marlene.
in the entire series.
Such a
For you all
cute
listening at
child.
home, she's so adorable. And for you all listening at home, did you all know she's 7 years old? That is a 7-year-old.
Did they
voice
confirm
acting.
her age in the remake? Because I think she was like,
No, the voice
Oh, okay,
actor.
the voice
actor.
No.
Voice
The
actor.
voice actor is 7. She is 7 years old, probably doing a better job than some adults I know. Like, her way that she reads her lines and her way that she expresses emotion is something that, like, you just don't see in some voice casts, and she
super
does a
talented,
fantastic
yeah,
job.
Definitely.
Now, I have a question here, and we've talked about a lot about the main cast, but there's a very important person we've not talked too much about, and I know we have a super fan of this person on the podcast. I'd like to ask Mandy what she thought of Tifa in the remake.
I was waiting my turn, and I know we have to give Cloud his moment, but I mean, Tifa was amazing in this game. She's so
absolutely.
good. And her friendship with Aerith was something I adored seeing. I loved all of those moments they have together. It's so well done. I actually didn't have like huge expectations for that specific friendship, and I think that's why they blew my mind with it. I was surprised.
Yeah.
And just the way they interact with each other, so supportive. Immediately, they have a bond. It just
Yeah, because they touch upon
and
that.
it's not like an instant jealousy thing. It's just they have each other's backs, and it's great from the get-go. It's so
Yeah,
good.
because the original you have little moments like that, right? But then it's just like so much more in the remake, and it's nothing. I have nothing but positive things to say about that.
It is so much more, and nothing frustrates me more than the like shipping wars, and not even shipping wars, but like best girl wars, and who is better between Tifa and Aerith, because who cares really? Like,
Yeah,
they're both
celebrate
amazing
both.
characters.
Exactly. Exactly. To celebrate them both for how awesome they are. But that's what gets me about this game, is how they made such a good choice in making them friends, and such good friends. So you know they can do the right thing. You know they've got great writers on there, and they know what they're doing. So I really loved that Tifa and Aerith had a really strong friendship building throughout the game, and hopefully continuing into the future. I'd love to see where that's going to go.
Absolutely. I do think that will continue. They've handled it so well so far. I do have faith in them for that. I think they will.
Yeah, one of the like the subtle heartbreaking scenes for me in the original is the famous Earth death scene, but also when Tifa goes
Yeah.
up to her and brushes a strand of hair out of her face.
That
Gets
always
my
gets me
heart
so
every
much.
time.
That whole thing.
Yes.
That's okay.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt, but that's one thing I want to touch upon with the comparison between the original and the remake. That scene is so perfect because not only obviously the kind of like impact that Aerith's death has in the game, but just the whole direction of the scene, and not just the FMV and with the music like coming in when the materia hits the floor. That's perfect, but then after that with the reactions of the characters, because that's what you don't get to, usually get to see a reaction of one character usually, or the main character with those kind of things, but all of the characters, their reactions to Aerith's death is just absolutely perfect. And obviously it depends on your team composition at the time, but every single one of those characters, how many characters are there, 9, something like that?
Something like that.
Every
I
single
don't
one.
think you have them all of them at that point. Yeah,
but
maybe you
they're
do.
so well done, and that whole scene is just perfect for me.
Well, it's unlike most video games, unlike most games. You know, usually in most games, you feel like you're losing a character. You feel like you're losing a party member. In that game, I really felt like I was losing a friend. I was losing someone close to me. I don't know why Final Fantasy hit it on the nose as hard as it did back in, 97? But it always felt like a part of me was being lost every single time. Still to this day, even when I play it now, you feel that way.
It's crazy, the kind of impact, that long-lasting impact that scene has. And I want to mention, because there's a lot of speculation about what's going to happen to the future of Final Fantasy VII Remake, and people saying the same things could be happen. I know we're going to touch upon the ending later on, but that's why I'm kind of doubtful, because it's not that I don't believe that they can do a good job of it. It's that scene is so perfect. In my mind, it's impossible to top that or equal it.
So we'll talk about things to come more later, but I do agree that it's done so well in the original. I am a pretty firm believer that it's still going to happen in the remake, maybe differently. And you know, like what you said about how perfectly the scene was done in the original, maybe maybe for that reason they'll do it differently. So it's not just
it makes sense.
You know, a copy of what was in the original, but I do think that they'll handle that well. I think as long as they don't continue to kill people and bring them back to life, I think they have the potential to handle these death scenes pretty well. But killing people off and then bringing them back is unforgivable in my opinion. That is kind of the worst thing I have to say about the remake is they just cheapen those emotions that you feel when you think these characters are dying and you know the original story, you know they have to die, and then in the end they're not dead.
It almost feels deceitful.
And everything you felt is just for nothing. Yeah.
And I feel like with that, we forgot some of the most important characters in the remake.
Oh, we're not
Biggs.
done. But continue.
I know, but Biggs, Jesse, and Wedge are so much better. I love them in the original, sure. I love Jessie in the remake. She has so much character, and I know everyone's like, oh, she's thirsty. Nah, she's just playing a game,
Not even a game, that's just her personality.
Let Jessie be Jessie.
That's how she is.
Right,
Yeah, exactly.
that's who she
There's
is.
nothing wrong with it.
It's very interesting, the choice that they've made with Jessie's character, because she has an extreme personality in the remake. Go ahead, Leona.
No, I was just agreeing with you. No, I think she does really have an interesting person. I think there's something deeper to her psychology as well.
sure.
Oh yeah,
to it, because when you go up to meet her parents and you learn about her dad and their whole,
that she used to be an actress, and she was at the Golds also.
Theater,
right?
Yeah, like a theater person. I think that's all. Like, I think there was definitely more to be said about Jessie, and that's why I'd be shocked. You know, a lot of people are saying that she is dead. She is only like one of the ones who died. And I think she's the one with the most to say
a bigger
still.
waste. Yeah, I agree.
Right, that would be like if one person had to live, I would rather it be her because I think her story has more to
It's more
say.
interesting, definitely.
I can see that, and they obviously they gave her the most development of any of them. I do like where they went with Biggs too, and the
that
orphanage
was
connection
great.
there. But with Jessie, they really gave her a full personality. She felt like a real person. I think more than the other two. So it does seem like what you're saying, like, yeah, she has maybe more of a story or more to say in future parts, but we'll see.
We'll see.
Hot take.
Oh,
Uh-oh.
She's like a female Locke in Final Fantasy VI, in my opinion.
Oh God.
Not
Eh,
exactly,
kinda.
but kind of.
Kinda. I can
does
kind of
not
see
like
that.
Locke.
I'm not the biggest fan of Locke, no.
I mean, it's very similar kind of personality traits, in my opinion.
So the only reason I disagree with that is because Locke in Final Fantasy VI, and if anyone's not played it, cover your ears. But Locke feels like everyone that he meets is a love interest,
that's
where
the difference.
Jessie,
Yeah, I agree with that.
everything is a game to her. Everything is just she's having fun with it. She has no real romantic interest in Cloud, but she enjoys flirting
But
with
she
Cloud. And
only
that's
flirts
awesome.
with him, though, while Locke kind of flirts with any kind of woman that he meets. Yeah.
Right.
Well, we
And
only see her flirt with Cloud.
All right.
I bet she's flirted with the
Yeah,
others
from what we
many times.
Oh,
at
I'm
the
sure.
beginning of the
Surprised.
game, when in the beginning of the bombing run, it kind of hints at that she has a history with Biggs, very subtly.
Yes.
I thought
Yeah,
so
So
too.
Yes.
that might
Yeah.
be something there. You might be right.
And the cool thing is, though, like, her flirtatious personality isn't the only thing that we see in this remake. I mean, we see how much regret and how much pain she feels because she feels like she's the one that did all this. She feels like she's the one that caused all this. And that is the most heartbreaking thing in the whole entire remake, is seeing her suffer with that. Yeah.
She mentions it throughout the whole game up until her death scene. Just, about her fears of things being her fault. And even in her death scene, she mentions it. And it is heartbreaking. It really is. Until then later, you think maybe she's not actually
Yeah,
dead.
I think
I'm still not over it.
He's still not. I'm not over it either. Don't worry.
I don't blame you.
I think she's alive
honestly.
because her gloves are on the kind of like desk thing next to Biggs.
So I do have thoughts about that. I really don't want to get too much into it right now, but I do think we're dealing with multiple timelines, and I am still unclear on which timeline I'm supposed to care about.
I hope
Because it can't be all of them.
There's just one timeline, please. I don't want to deal with it.
I am pretty sure we're going to have multiple.
Oh, we have to.
I said this at the end of my Final Fantasy VII stream, but I think multiple timeline stories are so
that's the
hard to
thing.
pull off because the more timelines you introduce, the less one timeline matters,
Yes, I agree.
It's dilution. It's what it is. Yeah, it's just diluted. I mean, you can't care about every single character 3 times, because if you do,
Exactly.
who am I supposed to care about? And you're absolutely right. I mean, again, replaying the game, like the first time, oh my god, I bawled like a baby during Jessie and Biggs' death scene. Oh my god, it was heart-wrenching. But playing it through the second time, you're like, they're probably alive anyways, whatever.
Exactly.
Oh, same. Yeah.
That's the problem. I can't even look at reactions on YouTube anymore because it doesn't touch me the same way now.
Exactly the
Yeah.
same
Such a
happened
shame.
with
I agree.
watching back Mandy's stream when she was playing through that part. I was like, I want to care, but I know what happens, so I don't.
Yeah, I mean, those death scenes in that chapter really did hit me pretty hard. And then finding out later, because specifically you do see Biggs and that he survived. And even at the time when we see his death scene, in the version that in my playthrough, he said to Cloud something like, "I can survive one more fight," or something like that. And then he passes out, and I'm like, but you just said you have one more round in you. What do you do? Like,
Right.
aren't you still alive? So I was pretty confused why they included that.
Right, and obviously we see why at the end. I still don't understand how he gets out, but I think it's something to do with the plot ghost.
It has to.
Yeah.
Well, does it?
I don't understand. I feel like that would go against what the plot ghost modus
Right.
operandi is, which is to keep
Sure.
things exactly the same. Well, they wouldn't save him then, so I don't understand how he got out of that tower.
So headcanon is that since Avalanche is a larger organization, you had resistance members. They could have easily, between the time that Biggs passes out and Cloud and the rest get up to the top and the
Fair.
pillar collapses. There's plenty of time, I guess, to some of the resistance members to like kind of grab whoever survived in the pillar and like take him out. But like you said, the plot ghosts, like,
But why?
what's the point
Why
then?
would that be
It's not very
different?
consistent if they're trying to prevent stuff from happening that's not supposed to, but then they let that happen, right?
They don't play by their own rules.
Yeah, pretty much.
I don't know why the larger organization of Avalanche would take the time to try and go halfway up the pillar to save Biggs and Jesse, but not go all the way up to try and stop the bomb going off for destroying all of Sector 7. That's the problem I have with, like, maybe Avalanche saved them, because, like, where were they then? There was something big going on.
No. Because you have the resistance members that are like kind of fighting Shinra and the Turks and stuff. Not like the guys that we see when we fight Roche. The other guys, the guys that we see at the beginning, like those just like,
so
you know.
yeah, right, those guys.
That's a great segue into Roche, though. Like, holy, what do you all think about Roche?
That's another
boy.
point that
Mandy,
kind
Spill
of.
the tea!
tell
What's
me.
the point? Because we see that,
Oh, agreed.
and then it's like after those couple of like instances that he shows up, you literally don't see anything else.
I had high hopes for Roche. I expected him to be like the main antagonist of this game. I thought we would get
Same.
like just a new arc for him, a new character, something for us to care about in this game.
I thought it was gonna be like Gary from Pokemon, you know, the rival, right? You know, like a rival
Kinda.
throughout the game, because he's not interested in what Avalanche or Cloud and like the rest their plans like for Shinra. He's not interested in that. He just wants kind of like a worthy opponent, right? That's what it looks like. So I thought that was gonna be kind of the theme going throughout the game, but you just have those two scenes and that's it.
I just needed one more mention
Yeah.
or appearance from him closer to the, maybe not even the end, but the second half of the game. I just needed him to appear one more time for him to be
Maybe
valid.
like in Wall Market or just after Wall Market or something. I don't know.
I'm sure he'll appear in future parts. It's just like, but right now we don't have the future parts, and this is a complete game, and it's a full story, and yeah, there are going to be sequels to it, but this character feels totally useless right now.
I think it wouldn't have been too out of the blue to have him in the final run on the motorbike outside of
Yeah.
Midgar, and then maybe even help us. You know, if that's where they're going to go, like. So I wouldn't have mind seeing him there.
I think we all got there and we were expecting him, and then he's just not there.
You know, that probably would have been an even better final boss than what we did get. Like, you know, at the end of the motorway, you get
I agree with
the kind of like boss. What was it called? I forgot his name. But the kind of robot thing that instead of fighting him at the end of the highway, you kind of like fight him on the bike.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Now, it would have been good if they would have added that, and then at the very end, then you get Roche, and he's a lot more powerful or whatever, and it's kind of like, could be like an epic final fight. That would have been good and different.
I wouldn't have even liked that. He doesn't seem like a final boss because he just appears at the beginning of the game. You don't hear about him the whole time. You do need higher stakes for a final boss. But
Absolutely.
They didn't have one. They had to create one. They had to throw one in there for us to care about. And that was always going to be a problem.
Well, you can easily make the stakes higher, though.
It doesn't even help that Roche, his entire segment, his entire purpose and being, and that entire motorcycle chase can be skipped in hard mode. I mean, obviously, we're not going to care about the boss that we can skip. Who cares?
That is a good point. That's a
Absolutely.
good point.
It's like they knew their motorbike
Yeah.
game was frustrating and annoying. They're like, yeah, let's just skip
Well,
it.
no, it was fun, but like since we got it so early and we got it twice, and I enjoyed the segments. I loved having the motorcycle in there. I think the controls were actually
Yeah,
pretty
pretty
okay,
good, yeah.
and I really enjoy for what a motorcycle scene could be. I mean, they did really well.
And as well as being
But-
pretty faithful.
I mean, it is literally just an upgraded version
Yeah, exactly.
of the original.
Yeah.
His controls are pretty much the same.
I don't know, like you all were saying, Roche needed another appearance to be even valid at all. He's probably going to appear in the next section, and by that point, I've forgotten about him or I don't care about him.
Yeah, everyone's gonna go, oh yeah, this guy. I forgot he existed. Most likely.
Yeah, just a bad taste in my mouth going into the next part. And then when he shows up, I'm just going to be like, oh yeah, now you want me to care about you. Well, you didn't do a great job building that up.
Exactly. You'd have to have like a big plot point for me to even like register him on my radar.
Yeah. And I don't think he will, but yeah, we'll
No.
see. And we haven't even brought up Barrett at all. And Barrett is such an important character.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
I really love him in the remake.
I do until a point, and then I actually hate him.
Really?
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Him or the story? Continue, please.
No, please, yes.
Okay, so I think Barrett is great. Love him. I think, especially like in the first Shinra Mako reactor thing, I think you get such good insight into his personality there and the sort of leader he is and that sort of thing. And I really liked him, and I really liked his interactions with the characters throughout the game. But to me, he loses all his intelligence at the Shinra headquarters in the Shinra room, where he suddenly acts completely different from how we know him. He's suddenly changed. They've changed. You know, the Barrett I know, I don't think would have hesitated on killing Shinra like that, and to see him dangling over the roof, I don't think he would have let him run to get a gun and pull it on him, especially when you have a gun for an arm.
Yeah, because we know Barrett is not dumb.
He's not dumb, and I think that was a disservice to his character. He's certainly not dumb.
That is such a good point, and I guess it goes back to what you were saying earlier about it almost feeling like two different games, to where much more than the first half of the game, that's not fair to say, but the first majority of the game, I felt like the characters were exactly who I knew them to be, and especially Barrett. Like, yeah, Barrett was great most of the game.
Yeah.
And then, starting there, especially when we're up on the roof with at the Shinra building, Barrett acts so strange, and it feels so different. Such a shift in his character.
And I think the same can be applied to a lot of the characters. And Aerith as well. Like, they kind of just are out of character from that point onwards, sort of.
I don't think that is by accident that it happens at the exact same time that they finally reveal that it's not the same game. Like, if you notice, everybody starts taking issue as soon as you start realizing that this isn't a shot-for-shot remake. And I don't think that they really gradated those really well, but I still really like what they've done with even Barrett. But I don't think Barrett's... What my favorite things about Barrett is not his hatred to Shinra. I think his interactions with Marlene, even though his other parts are kind of, shaky, his interactions with Marlene were fantastic.
Agree.
Oh yeah, they were absolutely so cute. Such a cute relationship.
But that's the thing, though. That was all before this point in the game.
Yeah, exactly. And if Elmira tries to keep them apart, I screw you, Elmira. You're not as cool as you are in the original. Elmira's character.
Who does she think she is?
Yeah, who do you think you are? It's definitely a downgrading character, I think, from the original. I got a more warm personality from Elmira in the original, and she's quite cold in the remake. You could say she's like hardened because of what she's been through. But I feel like I got that in the original, but I didn't get the warm side of her.
With
in
the
remake.
warmth, from like taking care of Aerith because she appreciates her for what she is, rather than trying to protect her at all costs, regardless of her own feelings and everyone else's feelings.
It would have worked a little bit better if they had a contrast to it. So if like she was very warm and you could tell how much she loved Aerith whenever Aerith was around, like you can see that in the callbacks. But if they would have done that when she's an adult, and then as soon as like Aerith went upstairs, she would start being cold to Cloud, it would have made sense to me. It would have been the protecting mother, and I would have got that.
Yes.
But she's also cold towards Aerith, which I feel a disconnect there.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, and before I move on from Barrett, I did want to mention that going into the game, I didn't know exactly what to expect with his combat, but his combat actually ended up being one of my favorites. I loved
so much.
I loved diversifying between the characters and switching over to Barrett when I had a specific need for Barrett, basically. Like, I could kind of play as Cloud or Tifa interchangeably most of the time, but then sometimes I just really needed Barrett.
Yeah, I agree. He ended up being my crutch pretty much because he was just a massive tank, but a healer at the same time. But then with the melee weapons...
The long range.
He did so
Exactly.
much damage with the melee weapons. It was crazy.
Yeah. Mandy says this all the time on her streams, but Maximum Fury is so satisfying
It
to
is.
use.
It feels so good. It feels powerful. Also, like the slight controller vibration as it's happening is just like the best touch.
I feel so powerful.
I do.
We can touch upon there with the combat, I think, because I'm gonna say it's probably the best combat I've played in an action RPG or let alone JRPG in a very, very long time.
Yeah.
We did miss one character that we might want to go back to really fast. We missed
Sure, yeah.
we missed Sephiroth.
Oh, do we even have to mention?
we do have to bring it up.
Is Sephiroth even a character?
No, he's not even a character.
That's the thing. Wouldn't that be more like the ending kind of discussion?
No, we can talk about we can talk about him, but I have nothing much to say. I think he's like my least favorite kind of villain in the remake, where he just pops up to spout gibberish and then look sinister and then disappear. That's like my least favorite kind of villain.
He was my favorite villain of all villains in any game ever, right? And then to get a downgrade to what he is in the remake, it doesn't even feel like a villain, like Leona mentioned.
I don't even think. Yeah, I don't even think it's. I don't know if it's supposed to be him, and that's why we have this feeling towards him.
It's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
So I do
But
understand that.
You could
but
feel that in the original.
we're
You
only-
don't feel
yeah,
that
sorry.
here in the remake.
But no, the thing is, Sephiroth plays exactly the part he's supposed to play in this remake. He is the overpowered, he is the just disgusting villain because he already knows what's going to happen. We're aware of that. And he feels completely callous, and he's not the same person he was in the OG because he no longer is dealing with those issues and resentments, and he's not going crazy. He's already crazy.
But what makes
That's what made him interesting. To me.
Sephiroth such a great character, let alone villain, is
But we
his
can't get that in
development
this.
into that. Well, we could because it's a remake.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, though, like, with the story that we got, that wasn't possible. And I think he serves the best possible way he can in this remake the way he does.
Right, so if that's the story they're telling, then, it's like a Sephiroth that has already moved past these issues. I need something to either make him interesting, or I need a new villain. That's the problem.
I'd someone else to serve the same purpose while Sephiroth can be the overarching kind of, ultimate god enemy
right.
villain thing in the game. Fine. The
Yeah,
ultimate
he's
power.
lost the relatability at that point then.
That's the humanity in it. That's what we do not have.
I
in
think
the
that's what
villain.
Shinra was supposed to do, though.
We got
then
even worse.
they
with
failed with
Shinra.
that then.
Completely.
Oh, they did.
We just got the most cliche villain. I'm bad because I'm evil thing with Shinra. Even worse than the original game, in my opinion. So that's what
I
I'm
think he was
kind of
more
wondering.
nuanced. If we're talking about Shinra as in the person Shinra, I think he was kind of more nuanced than the original because Rufus mentions how, like, at the end of the day, his dad is just about money, right? It was just it wasn't an ideological thing. It was just like, I'm a capitalist, I want money, this is how I'm going to achieve it. And that's more based on what reality is, but in the remake,
Sure.
Shinra is more, I'm evil and I enjoy it, I have no feelings, that kind of thing.
Yeah. That's what I don't like. Yeah, 100%. I agree with you, Leona.
So shall we go on to combat?
I loved the combat in this game. It was so satisfying, like we mentioned earlier, and it's just every character has their own way of playing. I can't wait to play as the future characters in future parts too. But learning the strengths of each character and how to play as them was so fun in this game. And it's not always the most obvious thing. It's not like you get a new character, you get Tifa, immediately you know how to play as her. It takes some time to get used to the combat, and I really enjoy that.
Oh yeah, Tifa especially took me probably the longest to figure out. She's so detailed in her design.
She is. And then you get Aerith later on, and I struggled with Aerith because I didn't know how to use her. I just kind of didn't use her for a very long time, and then she goes away for a large portion of the game.
Yeah.
And when I got her back, I was just like, well, I never bothered to learn how to use you. What do I do with you now?
Exactly.
And then that moment when you realize how she works and you appreciate it a lot more, it ends up being even more satisfying.
Yeah, everyone has their own little niche. Yeah.
There's so much depth in each character, let alone like kind of just the basic combat, the materia system and everything. But then you get the added depth between the variance in each character playstyle. It's just extremely satisfying throughout the game.
It is, and the game
yeah.
really encourages you to switch between characters. If you don't do that, you're probably going to, face some things that aren't as easy if you just play as Cloud the entire time. There are times when you pretty much have to switch characters, and I like the way that they did that. They force it on you pretty much.
Yeah. I don't think there's much of a choice, but they do give you materia. So like, there's some like auto materia for the AI to use. So like, if you were insistent, like I'm only playing Tifa, she's a queen, like you can give your characters some materia, and they will use moves by themselves. But you are handicapping yourself in this game, I think, if you do that.
Yeah, and the materia system is still there. It's a little bit different in this game because it's not affecting your stats as much when you're adding materia to your setup. So there's really no drawback to using any specific materia. You're not really screwing yourself over or changing your stats too much.
And that leads to a funny thing where, like, in the original, you could leave some slots open so you had better stats, but in this game, you're always hungry for slots. You're like, give me the slots! Yeah,
you want more slots, the more the better. Yeah. But that also, the weapon upgrading, it gives you more motivation to kind of maybe grind to get that SP so that you can upgrade your weapons more, because then you want those extra material slots, or you want those extra added stats, right? So it's a different kind of grind, but it still gives you, like, the grind is satisfying if you want to do it.
Yes, and it's never required. Like, you can get through the whole game without grinding whatsoever.
I think I handled this game differently than I did in OG completely, and I think that's absolutely fair with the way the game was laid out. I will say, for lack of a better term, and I don't have a better term, and I really wish I had a better term, but the materia system did feel dumbed down in this one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like there was nearly as many combos that I could perform. And, like, I really want, like, I want to be able to put elemental lightning on my weapon, and then I want to put, like, MP drain lightning, and then when I hit things, I get MP back. I want that.
I kind of know, I can guess why they did that, because in the original, since it's a JRPG turn-based, you kind of rely a lot more on the materia and stats and kind of the synergy between the materia and stuff, while in the remake it's action RPG, so it's player skill and strategy combined with the materia. So I think if they did have the depth to the materia system as in the original, you could get OP very easily.
Oh yeah, I think that's pretty much why they changed the way they did it in the remake. You can get so strong by the end of the game already, and they really don't need to let you get even more OP than that. But things like they only allow you to get 2 elemental materia. I desperately want a 3rd, but if you could just keep copying the elemental, like, then there's no point in anything. Like, nothing's gonna hit you.
Blue materia in the original is what makes the materia system fun. That is why everyone likes it, and it's all down to the support materia, the materia that you pair with the other materia, and there isn't many in this game. You get elemental.
What is that? Maybe 4?
Yeah, elemental as added effect. One of them. No, I don't think it.
Yes, magnify.
Synergy. I don't even count.
I know, but
it's there, right? But it's such a wasted slot.
And then there's magnify.
All.
Yeah,
and you only
get
all. Yeah. You get very few.
Yeah. It's the HP and MP ones.
HP drain there. Yeah.
And then warding.
AP up as well, yeah.
And while the combat felt really good, and while you're right, I mean, it doesn't feel very diverse, and that's amazing. I also felt almost handicapped at points where they would put in aerial enemies, and aerial combat in this game is not great.
Probably one of the only kind of like drawbacks to the whole combat system. Just the aerial combat is...
The problem isn't the aerial combat so much as, like, they don't give you the people that are good at aerial combat while you're fighting aerial enemies. Like, Barrett's nowhere to be found anytime there's any aerial enemies at all. But God bless, if there is only ground enemies, there's Barrett front and center.
That seems like it's intentional. It seems like it's intentional just to frustrate. Instead of making the fight actually hard, let's just kind of make it hard to actually hit it. You know, like artificial difficulty there a little bit.
Well, and that's kind of like, that's what was one of my biggest complaints about the whole combat system. That, and like, I wanted to be able to pick what characters I wanted to play, and they very conveniently made your other characters have to do something when you would have more than 3 people in your party. And I wanted to be able to be like, oh, okay, if this situation, I need Barrett, I need Tifa, and I need Cloud. And I wanted to be able to pick that, but that wasn't an option for me.
Yeah, being able to choose your party is something I'm looking forward to. They're hopefully being in the future.
So.
I don't know if they will in future parts, but I would really enjoy it.
So I think they won't, which is a shame because I think choice is always better for the player. I think they won't just because I think they think that they could craft better scenarios when they know kind of like what characters they're catering to in like in relation to combat.
I think you're right. I think they won't give us the choice. I just really think they should. I think it would be much more satisfying gameplay if we had the option to choose our own party.
Agree, yeah, definitely.
Especially when we start to get more characters. I don't want to just be thrown into situations where, okay, well now this is my team, I'm doing this, and then we'll switch over to this team where we're doing something else. I want to choose those teams.
Well, and the worst part is that we've already been introduced to the PHS system. You know, the party system from the original game has already been introduced to us, but in a very generic way. They allowed us to pick our characters. They even printed on the system that allows you to switch between characters PHS. Like, they're throwing it in your face. So I really don't think we're going to be seeing a party switching system in to come.
Unfortunately, I agree. I don't think we're going to get that. We could be pleasantly surprised, though.
That's another difference that's going to very wildly affect how the future of the remakes are going to be, was when they have to craft so many scenarios where the party splits up. So that's always going to change how things pans out if, you know, your characters aren't all in the same place, because they have to do something in these different places, right?
Right, and that I think is something that could potentially be frustrating if it's just, oh look, a rock fell, now the party's split up.
Right.
Because sometimes that's how these games go.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I 100% agree with you, yeah. Definitely.
And that's how it felt in this one. It was just like, oh, we have 3 party members. Oh, Barrett and Red need to run off and do something that they could have done with the team, and then we would have probably been a better unit.
Yeah, I think that's my main problem. That's probably why I don't like Hojo's Lab as much, just because they're constantly splitting up the parties as well as having to switch between them and do mundane tasks.
Also, they dangle Red right in front of your face and you don't even get to control him.
Exactly. Yep. I don't know. I don't like Hojo's Lab because it does just feel like filler. It just feels like we have to give them this extra long, tedious dungeon with loads of switches that is not totally
it's too long.
Well, that's the thing. They could have just made us use Cloud throughout the thing, and then the other characters can do what they have to do. You don't have to play through those bits because they're not like impacting the story. It's not fun. You're just gonna fight the same enemies over and over, unlock this door, switch over, fight the same enemies, unlock this door, and it's just like
some very poor dungeon
you do that
design.
5 times when you could do it once.
Yeah, exactly.
It's also the only time there's any kind of real puzzle to one of the dungeons in the game. So to throw it out or throw it in at the very last minute, where suddenly it's like, oh, now we have switches that we have to open, and then this door opens, and you have to figure out which one to go through. It's the first time we've seen that in the game, and it's at the very end. So it just doesn't feel like cohesive to the rest of the game.
I think it's hilarious that Final Fantasy has one thing that goes through every Final Fantasy, and that's how bad they are with puzzles.
That's the thing, like, I wouldn't even call it puzzles because you don't need to be like super smart or like aware or like observant of things. You just need to kind of like bash your head against the wall until you do it, because it's just the amount of time and effort spent in it.
I think Final Fantasy X is the only one that actually has good puzzles in the Cloister of Trials. I think that's the only...
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah, I do like that.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy VIII Ultimisha's Castle.
Is that a puzzle? You're just looking for...
Those
I don't know if I can...
It has puzzles. Some of them are very frustrating.
What do you mean? The clock one with the paintings? I love that, even though it's super frustrating.
Oh, it's so
Final Fantasy XII does it too.
Yes. I don't like those kind of puzzles. I like the Final Fantasy X kind of puzzles.
Yeah, they're actual puzzles.
Like literally puzzles with pieces that you have to put into certain places.
Yes,
Yeah.
I like that.
Right.
Anyway, that's a little tangent.
I want to talk about some of our favorite parts of the game, and I want to do this in two ways because I have a feeling our favorite parts are not going to necessarily be combat moments. So give me your favorite part, but then also I'm just curious. I want to know your favorite boss.
Ooh, yes, I like
That's
that
a
idea.
very good question.
I like that idea.
Okay, I can go first.
Yes, you go first.
Yeah.
That gives me time to think.
Yeah, okay. My favorite part, and it has to be Wall Market, specifically the
Yes.
Honeybee Inn.
Yes.
It's fine
Yeah.
if that's also your favorite part. I'm sorry if I stole
Mandy,
it.
talk for me because I think we're going to say exactly the same things anyway.
I think so. I think all of us will agree on the best moment in the game.
I just had so much fun with it. It's pure joy playing
Pure
through
joy.
it. And the way Cloud handles it is hilarious. It's not making fun of it so much as it is having
No.
fun with it.
It
And
is.
I just think it's just handled so well. Much better than I really would have expected. If you had
Sure.
told me we were going to get, a Cloud performance on stage, I had no idea it was coming. And it was so fun.
Can I just say, Square Enix, if you're listening, I want and I need a dancing game devoted to Final Fantasy VII. I need all the characters to be playable.
Forget
Thank
Kingdom
you.
Hearts. We need a Final Fantasy VII Remake rhythm game. That's
Yes.
what
But
we
I
need.
just
Yes,
want
please.
it
Specifically Honeybee
exactly
Bee.
the way they did it in that scene. It was so good. It was
yeah.
so
Yeah.
fun. And with all the other characters, I want to see more performances. I really hope that it's in future parts in some way, whether it's in like Gold Saucer as a mini game or whatever. I want it.
All the characters have their little moment. I'd love that in Gold Saucer.
I would love that too.
Oh my god, that's such a good idea, Mandy.
What if they do that?
Oh my
What
god,
if they
that...
do the play, but
I'm
instead
on
of a
board.
play, they'll do a musical.
Yeah, I was just thinking. Yeah, that would be so
heart.
good.
A big musical number.
That's why Jessie's still alive.
Yeah, she's going to choreograph
Yes.
it.
It all makes sense now.
Oh, that would be so good.
The one chance they have to redeem themselves is to give us this in Gold Saucer, and then all will be forgiven.
All Square Enix, are you listening?
And that you can replay it whenever you want.
Yes. I think what makes this, the Cloud dancing so iconic is it's not the first time like a JRPG has had a dance rhythm game and the characters move and act in a way you've never expected them before, right? But this was in the game. It seemed like so much more shocking that like Cloud was gonna break out dancing like this, and it just made me so happy.
It makes it canon,
Yeah.
right? It makes it canon that
He
he did that.
Yes, and then like the little adorable shots of Aerith cheering him on and
Yeah,
supporting him.
woohoo!
Yeah, that whole scene is just perfection.
And it's like, it's not even that Cloud is acting completely different. What I love so much about that dancing scene, though, is it's not only that Cloud, you would never expect him to dance in a million years. Heck, he brings it up several times that he's
Yeah.
not a dancer. But when you do the practice scene, you notice that a lot of his dancing is also tied in with his combat.
Yeah.
And I think that's what really
Yeah.
brings it home, is it may not be what we expect of Cloud, but in the back of our minds, it's like,
Right.
that kind of makes sense.
Right?
Yeah, it's like kind of like reining in your expectations in the tutorial. You think, oh yeah, he'll dance, but he's just gonna be like swinging his sword around a little bit and stuff, which is great. And then you get that number in the
Yes.
scene with Andrea,
Uh,
and it just makes it even more like it just magnifies it.
Yeah. And I said I would give also favorite boss along with my favorite part. And although in general I really enjoy the human bosses a lot more than anything else, my actual favorite boss I think is Airbuster.
Yeah.
Overall, I do like fighting the humans more, but I just had a better time fighting Airbuster. I thought it was very very fun, and the phases to the boss are all different and like different enough, but not too frustrating when you change to a new phase. And you have to be. It's the first time you really have to be that strategic with a boss in the game, and if you haven't started learning the character differences by then, you're gonna struggle. And so I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's a really well designed boss.
I agree.
I think it's one of the.
That's also my favorite, probably.
Okay, I think I have a favorite part and a favorite boss.
Awesome.
We've obviously talked about Wall Market. The only thing I'll throw in is as a queer person, you know, is the homoeroticism of the dance with Andrea. There was a lot of touching, and there was a lot of leaning in for a kiss, and it was
The
so
tension,
tense.
the tension is
and
palpable.
I really
yeah.
enjoyed it. I'm glad they didn't like shy away from it, and they went full pelt with it.
They really did. They didn't shy away from it. They knew what they were doing, and they didn't try to apologize for it. I agree so much. It was such a joy to play.
Really a joy. A favorite part is I want to mention like a new part, because like I don't want people to think that I don't. All the things I dislike are things that I've already seen that I think should have been like just the same as the original. And it was like we talked about before, the Aerith going to get Marlene in the Sector 7 slums. It was such a tense scene, so emotional.
Yeah,
the panic.
It was very
the panic
emotional.
of the people, and Aerith being shoved, and she's just trying to get to Marlene, who is just this little innocent,
the helplessness in
this
it.
little innocent girl trapped in that bar, and you're just like, oh my god, you've got to get there, and it just
That's when like the pacing is good, because like the urgency is there. Like you're so like invested, but then they make you kind of like it just takes a long time to get there because of what's going on. And then when you're carrying Betty,
Betty,
and you're just walking while all of the area, all the inhabitants of the slums are just like barging past Aerith, you're just like, oh my god! Like I hope you really kind of know what's gonna happen, but you're kind of doubtful in that. That's how well it's done. So you're doubting whether everything will actually be okay whilst you're playing.
Yes, and that's something this game does so well, is that atmosphere of kind of terror and panic and anxiety. It happens several times throughout the game. It happens in Chapter 2, right after the first reactor. It happens when Aerith is carrying Betty and Marlene, and then just several times where you're in the moment after something horrible has happened or something horrible is about to happen, and you can really feel how tense it is in the air and the characters around you and the music. It just creates this tone that is so true to life, and it's so well done.
I agree with you 100% there.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, and my favorite boss, I have to give it to Rufus. I thought he was such a fun boss, and it just looked so cool. Like, out of the most anime you could imagine, that boss fight felt like to me. Where it was like he had these guns and the dog, and he was shooting like coins and turning them into lasers, and I just like, this was so fun and so well designed. So that was a lot of fun for me, and it was a one-on-one fight. So that's what also makes it kind of special, because it's like you have to use Cloud. You have to know Cloud's moveset just right to combat this boss effectively, and I loved that.
Not even that, because you have to kind of like bide your time, because a lot of one-on-one boss fights you can kind of like, oh yeah, I know what to do, I'm just going to use these attacks and like just like blast them away. But with Rufus, because he's just literally counterattacks everything apart from having like those specific openings, it really adds to not just the difficulty but like the strategy to
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's
I
really
love
good.
a boss fight where you have to have a specific strategy, not specific strategy, but you have to have some kind of a strategy. You can't just go into every single fight the same way, where a lot of the times throughout the game, if you have your basic setup that you use for every fight, you're going to be fine. But then for Rufus, you actually have to think.
Sure.
And I really do like that. And I honestly love a good one-on-one boss fight. And that's exactly what that was. I loved it.
Well, and not only that, but they kind of like, they did this thing where throughout the previous parts of the game, you could pretty much kill just about any humanoid enemy by clicking on Punisher mode and holding R1. It started with Rude, where you couldn't do that anymore. And then they escalated that, and they brought that to a whole new point. And now, if you don't attack in a very specific window, you're not even getting an attack in. So that was pretty cool.
Exactly. You could go half of the fight just healing yourself and not doing any damage.
Yeah, I've not seen what he's like in hard mode, so I'm really looking forward to Mandy's stream where she
Ooh,
fights
me
Rufus.
too.
Yeah, I think that's probably the boss I'm looking forward to the
well.
most in the hard playthrough.
Yeah, hard mode has been fun. It's been a lot of fun.
You've been killing it, honestly. You've done so well in hard mode.
Oh, thank you.
Extremely well. Like you have not struggled
I would
barely
struggle
anything.
so much more.
Just on like on the bosses that you kind of expect so everyone to struggle in, and the rest you kind of like being almost breezing
Yeah,
through.
you make it look so easy.
Oh, thank you. I've had a lot of fun with it. I can't wait. We're getting close to the end of the game now.
Yes, it's gonna be so good.
Looking forward to the end, but not.
Yeah, I'm
really.
looking
I am
forward to
looking
the
forward to
bosses.
seeing it again with this new perspective
That's
of
true.
having already seen it once.
Yeah, right.
That's true.
I mean, I've seen plenty of VODs like of the ending, so
I actually haven't seen that many.
I don't think it will change my views.
Yeah, I've seen a few, but I don't know. I'm looking forward to playing through it all again, and now that I've thought about it once, just playing it for yourself is just something entirely different, I think. And I'm excited to get to the end of hard mode. CYNICA, what was your favorite part?
Oh god, there's, like I said from the very beginning, so many of these parts felt so true to the original, and I really do enjoy the vast majority of the game. You all have brought up Wall Market, probably one of the most iconic scenes in the game, and you've brought up the part with Marlene when Erik goes to rescue Marlene, and that's also one of my favorite scenes. I love Marlene. I've already talked about that. I care for Marlene, and you could feel that in that scene.
Yeah.
But I kind of like the expansion that we're getting with Aerith. I know a lot of people are a little bit upset that Aerith is different in this one, and she kind of does just kind of push the plot along. But now we have a reason why Aerith is the way she is, and I think right after Hojo's lab. By the way, Hojo's disgusting, and I hate everything about him. They played that.
Oh, absolutely.
They played that part so well, and I am still so
Perfect. Yeah, they
disgusted
nailed
with
it.
Hojo. But after you get done with all the Hojo stuff and you're just kind of like relaxing in Aerith's room and she's telling you the story of her and her people, and you can hear so much passion behind her story and her feelings towards her mother and all those things, I really think that despite that being on the latter half, the half that most people don't like as much, I think that is something that I really, really needed at that very moment. It was uplifting. It was fun. Not fun, but it was emotional, and I enjoyed that.
I agree. I think they could have expanded on that a little bit more. I wanted to see more of that. In my
absolutely.
Maybe
opinion.
we'll get more in the future.
More of that, less of Hojo's lab.
But as far as my favorite boss goes, I've always been a sucker for the two bosses at once kind of trope that a lot of games throw at you, and I think it really expands the difficulty.
Wow, most people.
Oh, I
hate that,
love it
actually.
because it's like it's something I struggle with so much in video games, because when you're only focused on one enemy, it's pretty easy just to be like, okay, I need to do this.
Yeah.
But when your brain's constantly moving, so I think Reno and Rude, because there are two people you love to hate. I mean, I love Rude. Honestly, Rude doesn't have to be a bad guy. I stan Rude as much as I stan Shinra Recruit. But
I mean, they tell you, "Oh, I'm not a bad guy."
Right.
I did that, by the way.
Yeah, that's. Yeah.
but the fight between Reno and
So
Rude,
heavy-handed to me.
it was so good.
Not subtle enough.
It was so good though. Like, and not only that, but like the inclusion of Pyramid, like from the original game.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I loved it.
Yes.
I
I
loved
just
so
replayed
glad.
that on hard mode, and I had forgotten that Pyramid was in there. And again, I was like, yes.
it. Right.
He doesn't use it enough, in my opinion, in that fight. Like maybe you see it once.
Oh,
Yeah,
see,
I only saw
yeah.
it once.
Whenever I was fighting him, I think I got it 3 times. I know it's always RNG, but I think I literally got it 3 times on Barrett, which was my tank, and I'm like, you're killing my tank.
Yeah. I watched you play that CYNICA, and I think you did get it the most out of anyone I've ever seen.
Yep, I loved it. I loved it.
But that's good because I love that fight because it was because in the original most of the boss fights pretty straightforward up until you get to because it's pretty early on in the game anyway in the original, but once you get to that fight, a lot of people get game over on that fight just because of the pyramids, and they don't
Right.
like it's a strategy you have to develop because you have no idea what to expect, especially if you're playing blind. And then like if you're not paying attention, you get all 3 in the pyramid, and then it's like all of a sudden game over. You're like, what? And I like what they did with the remake with that. Like it does ramp up a little bit in the difficulty of that boss fight compared to previous ones.
Right.
I think it's done very well.
Yeah, I agree. Griever, have you given yours?
I pretty much agreed with yours. Both
Okay.
Wall market scene. And
We did cover the good ones.
the
didn't we?
airbuster
Yeah.
fight. Just
I
'cause
had
the
a
whole
feeling.
thing.
I mean,
yeah.
there are so many good bosses though, and
Oh,
it is fun.
I think
it's very interesting that no one mentioned the final boss as the favorite boss of the game.
There's a good reason
maybe
for
we
that.
can talk about that later.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just say as far as combat goes, the only reason I didn't mention that fight is because at that point you get counter stance, which is the most broken thing in the game. And I'm not kidding you. I think I did that fight. I used counter stance for every single one of his moves. And I kid you not, I might go back and look at the VOD. I don't think I got hit once.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
makes it pretty trivial, especially normal. Like, yeah, you just use that.
I didn't find it easy because at that point I was like so upset with the game.
Yeah.
You weren't even paying attention to the fight, really. You were just
I
like
wasn't paying
ranting.
attention. I was so in my head about what I was not liking about the story that I died several times to that fight, and so I had to keep watching. And I'm like, I just want the game to end. I'm so
I
emotional
don't
right
want
now.
this anymore.
I'm sure I would have been very similar to that if I hadn't been so over-leveled when I finished the game.
Right.
I was not comprehending anything at the end of the game. I was just kind of going through the motions. And I was very confused up until the credits rolled about everything that had happened.
Right.
I mean, it's still not... I don't think it's completely clear exactly what we're supposed to take away.
No.
It's not clear.
But I think I have a little bit of a firmer understanding of it now, or at least I have ideas of where it could go. But at the time it was happening, I was just like, what is even going on? Why is this happening?
Yeah.
And like, why do I care? Like, what is this?
That's the
I'm so
intention.
overwhelmed at that point. Yeah, it's just so overwhelmed. There's so much happens in such a
Yeah. It's just to lead into the rest of the games.
I'm pretty sure I had a pretty good idea what we were dealing with the first time I saw the time wraiths or whatever you want to call them. As soon as you meet
same.
Erik, I had almost every inclination
Really?
what path we were going down, and I think that's I kind of warmed up to the idea over time, and it was okay with me. I really didn't have much of an issue with it throughout all of it, and I just really kind of enjoyed
I
it.
didn't either because I knew. I agree with you in that when you see that scene. You see that it's different from the original, and you kind of like sets the tone of like, look, yeah, it's a remake, but it is gonna be different, and you kind of expect that throughout the game. And I think most of us were open-minded with changes to the original as long as it didn't deviate too much from the original. But that's the problem, in my opinion, with the ending is that it just changed it so radically. At the end,
Right.
it didn't even feel like the same game. It felt like honestly as if I had, I don't know, bought another like spin-off title with like the Final Fantasy VII characters in them, and I was just playing that. It felt off.
Something they did pretty fantastically throughout the entire game is they were pretty ambiguous throughout the entire game. Like, I think it was Mandy's playthrough that I was just recently watching, where Sephiroth says he doesn't want to, or is Cloud going to mess up again? And throughout the entire game, you're like, oh, he's talking about Nibelheim. But is he?
Yeah.
We don't know. We don't know
Yeah,
if like
and you
he's seen this in the past. Yeah.
We mentioned that in Mandy's last stream when we were talking about it in chat.
Yeah.
That at first, like looking at it in your blind playthrough, looking at it first, you're like, yeah, definitely. It's with knowledge from the original. You're like, oh yeah, in the past, so it must be like their previous experiences or scenes with each other in Nibelheim. And then now looking back at it with the kind of like more context we have for the ending, and you're like, maybe he is kind of like talking about it from the outside looking in kind of thing.
Right.
Like he has a lot more knowledge of what is gonna happen and what he wants to happen, and that he's definitely wants to change things. So it makes sense. Very interesting. I am looking forward to seeing what happens with that and where they go in the future of the series.
Right. I am too. I am very intrigued by the ending. And in some ways, really optimistic about what's coming next, and in other ways a little nervous. But either way, I'm just very, very interested to see what comes next.
For sure, yeah. I know a lot of people saying that then they were so disappointed that they're not even gonna like play the second part, which to me is kind of. I mean, I understand disappointment, but like, aren't you curious? Like, I'm curious. I want to know what happens now.
Right.
Like,
as much as I obviously dislike the sort of ending and specifically how it was handled, like, I do still need to know what happens. And then I think if I don't like the next game, then I can just say, oh, right, it's not for me, right? Because I feel like that's a fair shake at what they're trying to do.
Sure.
Right now, it's just a case of, it's not that I necessarily dislike what I saw, it's a pessimistic feeling that I don't think they can pull off what they're trying to do. Personally,
And I don't think it's
Right.
even just the story that I feel is kind of up in the air still. Like, yeah, the story, none of us really know what's going to happen. They left it pretty open-ended, and like, we're pretty confused. But also, the next part is the open world part. Is it going to still be a linear game? Are we going to get an open world?
Yeah.
Will we get the high wind? No, we really don't know.
Was FF7 ever open world? I don't believe it was. It just had a world map. It doesn't mean it's open
no,
world.
yeah.
I mean-
it was the illusion of open world, but it wasn't.
Yeah, it was still linear. You still had to go from Midgar to Calm to Chocobo Ranch to Janoni.
It was a linear story with freedom of exploration. At
But
some
you
point.
still had that ability to, like, say, go to the Golden Saucer and hang. Are we going to get that?
Yeah.
Are we going to get the ability to travel between cities at will?
I hope
Or are we
so.
going to be on this
See,
roller
I
coaster?
don't want an open world like Final Fantasy 15 was, but I do want the same kind of thing where you had moments in the game where you can explore freely before going to the next part of the next scenario
Yes.
in the game. I hope they do.
I think what we'll see is you'll have areas you can explore freely before going to the next part. I don't think we'll have the entire map open to us. Maybe at the very end. I think maybe it'll be similar to Final Fantasy X, really, where pretty much the whole game is linear. And then at the end, you get the option to go back to certain places.
Right.
But I don't know if it's going to be as open as the original at all.
Yeah, but
I don't either.
the original they did lock you out. Like you could only go through one continent at a time until you had the high wind, which is pretty much close to or at least like 2/3 into the game. Because you needed to get
you go
the
from, like-
buggy after the gold saucer, and then you needed to get the tiny bronco, and even then you were restricted, right?
Yeah, I don't even think we'll get that amount of freedom. I don't think we'll get the
Yeah.
whole continent. I think
No.
Right.
we'll be tied to one area,
areas
and
of
then
the game, yeah.
we're going to get that screen. Are you sure you want to leave this area? Because you can't go back once you do.
Yeah, that was annoying. I mean, that's another point with the game. Like, they said that so many times in the remake. Like, is it really, like you're asking me this question, but are you, like, because before you go to the Shinra building, they asked you, right? Or at least at the start of that chapter.
I'm grateful for it. I like it. I'm grateful.
No,
for
but it's like
those
kind of
little
telling you,
warnings that this
oh,
is
you
a-
might have missed a couple
point
of,
of no
of items. Better go back and check.
Yeah. Well, I agree with that. I like
But
that.
I mean,
because, like,
JRPGs kind of like, it goes without saying that there are stuff you should explore. Like, you should be exploring either
But
way.
you don't know necessarily that this is like the end. You can never come back here. You know, like I like being told that, oh, this is it. You know, you're going to be locked into it, like never coming back here ever again if you don't get everything right now. I appreciate it.
Yeah, but
I did too, especially before the Shinra building, because to me it's the game just being like, hey, this is the end of the game, like do whatever you want to do. The game didn't
Right.
tell me like, hey, you missed a specific materia, go back and get it. It didn't do that at all.
Exactly.
It just
Well-
said like,
No.
this is your warning, the game is
Yeah,
ending.
it's
It did do that.
practically telling you that, though.
It did do that at points. There
it
were that
practically
was
telling you. Yeah.
No. It
No, right there, it's not telling you that at all. Right there, it's just telling you you can't go back after you cross this line. It's not pointing out that you missed specific things.
In some points, it literally tells you, though. That's the problem. In some points, it literally tells you. So, in, like, let's say, where was it? Mako Storage. Right before you get to Mako Storage, if you miss a materia, it will literally say, hey, you missed a materia. Are you sure you want to leave? Like,
Right, which is
in
even
those
worse.
words, which is unexcusable. So,
Right, and I get that. I am just saying that at the end of the game, when it's telling you you can't come
Right.
back ever again.
That is
Like,
fine.
I'm fine with that.
That is fine.
That's
the
fine.
point of no return, but there's usually one point of no return. They ask you various times in the game. That's my issue. The one time in Hoja's lab, sure, no problem. The rest, not so much.
Yeah, I actually agree with even the materia one. I know which one you're talking about because they tell you didn't get that summon materia. And the reason I'm okay with it is because that dungeon is all about experimentation and flipping switches and riding on elevators. You do not know where they go. And the end of the dungeon is flipping a switch and going in on an elevator. You don't know where to go. So it's unfair to expect the player to solve a puzzle where they have to take leaps of faith all the time on where they're going to end up, but one of them can randomly end the dungeon and lock them out of that forever. That's a frustrating design.
Right,
choice
but
to me.
most older Final Fantasies are exactly that, though. Literally, you've missed so many things.
This isn't an older Final Fantasy.
Okay, so Final Fantasy VII Original, like the whole PlayStation era and the SNES era, so many things you can miss.
Here we have New Game Plus. We have New Game Plus in this where you could have easily retrieved those items if you had missed them. I mean, it's not like...
Right, but my point is, on this dungeon in particular, it's not a matter of you can miss it, it's a matter of the dungeon's design tells you have to solve this puzzle, take leaps of faith and experiment with these switches. But doing that can randomly punish you. That's the thing, like in such a big ways, and you're locked out from the very thing you're trying to get forever. That's not good design.
Yeah, I like being able to
and
miss
it's not
things.
like you'll ever be back there. You
Exactly.
can't.
Well, you can in New Game Plus.
Right, but that's a lot of dungeons in the older Final Fantasies are exactly that, though.
Not quite. And even older Final Fantasies, you can still, like, when you're going to fight a boss and leave the screen, there's usually a save point,
Right.
and then a boss, and then the dungeon's over.
Yeah, there are subtle
This
cues,
is
right?
The
fair
dungeon. This says the dungeon's over if you randomly ride an elevator, just like all the other elevators in this
Right,
dungeon.
so they could have done...
That's the point to me.
They could have... So the cues before a boss fight in Remake is when you have a vending machine and a bench, right?
Right.
So they could have had that, instead of asking the question, just put a bench with a vending machine right next to the elevator that goes up to the boss fight.
A lot of old games do say, "Are you sure you want to continue?" And you have to say yes or no. That's not a new thing.
Yeah, usually in the very end of the game. But that's what I'm saying, in this game, it's at various points in the game.
Yeah, I'm just saying for this particular dungeon,
Right.
it's
Yeah,
even if I missed it the first time, it doesn't guarantee me that I'm not going to just make the exact same mistake the second time, because you have to ride so many elevators and so many switches that are exactly the same. You know what I mean? So it's like it's not quite fair.
I think it's time to dive into the ending.
Yes.
Okay, so to me, the ending is kind of a twist. You start to find out that you're not playing exactly a one-for-one remake of the original with just minor changes added in. You're playing a different game. The ending of this game is going to be different.
Yeah.
And what I want to talk about is, at what point did all of you realize that? I know CYNICA mentioned that he started to realize it much earlier. I didn't realize it until it was basically spelled out to me. So did you guys have an aha moment? Was it a slow build for you? When did you realize it?
As soon as I saw the ghost, I was like, it could go there. I can see what this could be used for, but I also was in a sort of state where, well, it doesn't necessarily mean that, right? I'm not 100% sure. I think I remember a moment in my stream where I'm walking up the staircase just after Genova's kind of released, the blood trail in the original, that sort of area, and I'm like, I don't think this is the Final Fantasy we know. I think this is going to be an alternate reality.
It didn't have
plot.
the same
And
feel, did it? It felt different.
No. I said it out loud, and I was like, I also think it maybe this is like a virtual reality, like, or something. I was like, I was pretty sure it wasn't going to be the Final Fantasy VII that we know, right?
Yeah.
I knew it at that point, but that's still quite late in the game. It's only revealed like an hour at most later than that, so I'm still in doubt for a majority of the game.
Yeah. Like, you had the little hints here and there, but you didn't think it would deviate so much from the original. You just thought
Exactly.
like a bit of expansion here and there. Fair enough. Slight
Exactly.
changes, but not to the extent that it did end up being.
I will say that I had a big, I said whenever Aerith, all that changed, it was in my brain that, I could see how this game would would change and how they would edit it, and it kind of made sense then. But even like outside of the Lucky Seven, like whenever you're outside the bar and there's all the ghosts, like that was kind of the moment when things felt off. They didn't feel right to me. And that was kind of when I really, really knew something was amiss. But
oh yeah, it's so different.
Absolutely.
I wasn't sure whether is this like a mysterious new force added to the game that's going to be part like a secondary boss for the next like 3 games or something, or is it like a way to tell us that, you know, we're just going a different direction. This is actually not the same game. That's what I wasn't sure about.
Yeah, whether it was expansion or whether it was a change, right? That's how I was throughout most of the game. And I think the first point where I did kind of doubt it was when Sephiroth shows up after the bombing run, right?
Right.
And then like Cloud gets that kind of like that weird thing that he gets, and you could see Nibelheim kind of blended into the upper plate. And I was like, but it never felt like, is this going to be a different game, right? Like, it didn't feel like, it just felt like, wow, they're really going like all in with this like whole Sephiroth Cloud losing his mind. Because in the original you do see like he gets like these glitch kind of flashes, right? And I just thought they were going like really in depth. Yeah. I just thought they were going really in depth with that. And then you get like the plot ghosts with Aerith, and I thought, oh, this is different, but again, I thought it was they were just expanding upon it. And then, like CYNICA said, that part in the Sector 7 slums, that was very, very different. Again, it felt like expansion. So it only ever felt, I think I agree with Leona, at the very end, maybe Hojo's lab. I just don't like it. That point onwards.
Yeah, that point in the game for you is just like
so different. Yeah, that was the point of the game where I felt, this is not Final Fantasy VII. I mean, it is, but it's a different Final Fantasy VII.
Right. It's like a spin-off or whatever, like an alternate reality.
I think Mandy explains it well. It's like a sequel.
Yeah, a sequel. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it did start to feel like a totally different game in the last 2 chapters. Actually, I mean, like last 3 chapters, because the Shinra building to me feels so off from the original. It didn't have any familiar sense to me to the original at all. I wasn't going through the Shinra building with any kind of memories from the original. Like, it just felt totally new to me. But my moment of realizing they are changing time, they're changing the history of what happened in Final Fantasy VII, that didn't happen for me until like the last chapter. I had no idea what the plot ghosts were doing until they told me.
Yeah.
Barrett's quote, death unquote.
Oh, God.
We didn't even talk about that before. I meant to. But oh man, leading up to this game coming out, we talked a lot about the changes they might make. And people made suggestions like, oh, what if they kill Tifa instead of Aerith? Or what if they kill Cloud instead of Aerith? And so when Barrett kind of dies, I was like, wait a minute, did they really do that? And they completely got me with it.
Right.
Yeah, like that's the thing about it, but it's another fake death. And that's what I'm saying. I'm not someone who's against change. I'm just like, if you're going to kill Barrett, do it. Just do it. Kill him.
I agree.
Yeah. I really thought they did. And when I was playing through that next boss, which is also a really good boss that we didn't mention.
Yeah, Genova Dreamweaver.
Genova Dreamweaver. I was just kind of like not even focusing on the boss because I was just like, is Barrett dead? Like, I was just
you were so shook. Like, you were shook.
I was.
Like,
I was imagining the whole game without him from that point.
Yeah, that would have been so sad, though.
You can subvert expectations because, look, the original they did that. Like, they killed off a main party member that you had for 20 hours at that point, right?
Yeah.
And she was gone for good. And that's why there's so many theories about reviving Aerith like throughout that time, because it was such a huge deal that they took the risk and they subverted people's expectations, like going through with it and following through with it and sticking to it. They could have done the same thing with Barrett's death. Okay, yeah, it's still like relying on a death, but they could have stuck with it, and that would have been impacting. People might not have been happy about it, but it would have definitely been a twist, and it would have added to the impact of the game.
Exactly.
Right?
I will say, I think that Barrett's death was the point where they had planned for the player to know this is not the same game. I think that is exactly the point where they wanted to slap you in the face with it and let you know. Because after that, everything's cascading. Everything from there on is cascading. So,
yeah,
that's a point of divergence.
That just never sat well with me. Like, if that's what they wanted me to know, like, okay, but could you not have done it in a way that didn't make me feel wholly unsatisfied?
Yeah, it feels like they're betraying you, right? Your emotions.
Exactly. Taking advantage of the player.
Yeah, and so from then on, like you're saying, everything is just kind of nuts.
Yes, it's absolutely insane from that point.
Okay, so Rufus is fine. Like, the fight, it's a throwback to the original. You get Sephiroth kind of like, or at least the clone, jumping off the building with Genova. Yeah, okay, I mean, it's different, sure. But then you go on the highway and then you get the tower with all of the ghosts kind of like spinning around the tower, with the Shinra tower, and you're like, what the hell's going on? Like, it's very, very different. It feels very different. You get the motorcycle chase, and then you get the ghosts everywhere. It's just kind of like, what the hell is going on?
And then you get to the end of the road, and then Aerith suddenly knows everything.
Everything.
Like, she has all these answers. She knows what to do next. And I'm like, where did this development come from?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because she's like, in when you get the flashback thing, not the flashback, the kind of scene with in the Shinra. I want to touch on this on the Shinra building with the ancients and stuff, with the propaganda from Shinra, and even then, back then, like they kind of out of character as well, because the way they react to that, what happens with Sephiroth and media showing up, and they kind of like, oh, well, that was crazy, and they kind of just like carry on with their day as if like they didn't just see that, right?
Exactly.
Like, it's a huge deal.
And it's a weird, like, I don't understand. I don't remember the game particularly well. How did that portal to the mega boss open? Did Aerith do it, or did it
Sephiroth just like slices open reality and walks through, and you're like, well, I guess we follow him in there, even though we don't know where we're going.
Did he want us to kill the big boss? Is that what he wanted?
Yeah, it seems like that's to get rid of the fate, right?
There is a theory that Sephiroth had planned for us to kill the end boss because that is what allows Destiny to change.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, I hate that. I hate reasons which is like, it's your destiny to change it, so I am going to, that is why it happens, because it's your destiny. I'm like, why is it my destiny then? It's just like, that's so silly to me.
Yeah, if I just destroyed Destiny, then it's not my destiny to destroy it, right? Like, it just doesn't make sense.
My destiny is to destroy Destiny. Like, what?
I think it's Sephiroth's goal this whole game to try to change what happened in the original Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
And so that's how the ending comes to be. And so, his goal is to change history, and then we'll see what happens after that.
Which kind of like, it already raises questions saying, like, does that mean Final Fantasy VII Original did happen? Like, all of that happened already.
Yes.
Because Sephiroth knows about it, right?
Yeah, that's my interpretation.
So this is a
Final
sequel.
Fantasy VII has already happened, and Sephiroth wants to change it.
So he's gone back in time to another time.
My new favorite theory is I didn't realize this until someone had brought it up, but if you watch the very end of Final Fantasy VII OG, it actually is the exact same scene from the very beginning of Final Fantasy VII OG. Mm-hmm. Like when Aerith is looking into the live stream, she looks up, and so everyone is assuming this is a sequel, which we already know that there are hints at it being a direct parallel to Advent Children, which I think is just
say that the beginning of Remake with Aerith is the ending.
The end of 7.
Of OG.
Yes.
Yeah, I could see that, but that's also very simple. And I don't think it's that simple.
I mean, it's simple, but it's not. Like, it's only like that because we're going back to change it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not simple. I don't think it's simple at all.
No, I mean, and the whole thing about Aerith and OG having the same sort of animation of her looking up, I always just interpreted that as, that's an iconic shot of Aerith. That's who she is. That's her face.
Yeah, it's because it's even got the tones at the beginning of the song, right? The introduction to the game. You have those little flurry at the end.
It was always just to let you know that the live stream coming and stopping Meteor was Aerith. That's the only thing I took away with it.
I agree.
Not that Not that we only had some like reincarnation sort of
No,
storyline going on.
I think it was just like, look, there's one thing that's constant in this world, and that's a live stream kind of thing. Right? Like, humans can come and go and everything, but the live stream will always be there. And the planet.
Agreed. I don't think anyone's arguing that this was planned.
No,
back
not at
when-
all.
No,
No.
definitely not
No.
back then. No.
When we make this game in 25 years, we can do this because it's all a circle.
It'll
It all
blow their
comes back
mind.
around. I don't think so. Yeah.
No, definitely not.
All in all, though, I will say that the ending allowed, and I know that a lot of people hate this, it allowed for so much creative freedom, and I know that a lot of it felt like a cop-out to a lot of individuals, but the reason I enjoy this game so much is because I've already experienced the OG for 2,500 hours plus. I don't need the OG again. I don't need another OG Final Fantasy VII. It's
Neither
nice,
do
but,
I.
yeah. Right. It's just really interesting to see. I'm just really excited to see where they take this story.
It's not that I dislike changes. I'm totally happy. I just want them to be like, I don't need a reason. I do not need Plot Ghosts to be like, oh, we can change it. We can break free of our changes. Like, no, you could have done that just from the start without them. You could have just wrote, hey, this is a sequel to Final Fantasy VII. Let's get into it. Let's just get right in there. I'm fine with changes, and I'm looking forward to see what the changes are going to be. It's going to be interesting for sure.
Or just make Final Fantasy VII 2. Just do it. Doesn't mean it doesn't matter if it was
do it.
25 years between the first and second. If it's the characters that we want, just make another story with those characters. Right?
I think even the people who like the ending are totally fine with never seeing like the whispers or anything like that come back
Yeah.
again.
I'm fine with I don't think the whispers were necessary.
Yeah, I think we're just all good with them. That's them over now, right? You did what you
Yes.
wanted. You can change what you want. Please never bring them back.
Yeah, that comes back to my point earlier about like the game kind of like kind of insulting your intelligence, but then other parts of the game it doesn't. It expects you to know things. So which one is it? One or the other? Like
Yeah.
with the ghosts, it kind of insulting your intelligence, saying that they need to be really blatant with what they're doing by this literally physical representation of change. Right? When they could have been a lot more subtle with it, and the players would have still
yeah.
got it, especially by the end.
I have a question for you guys. Do you think this game is a good place for newcomers to Final Fantasy VII to start?
No.
I actually think it's great. It's funny enough that you say that because
It's a great question, but I don't think so.
I don't think I would have said yes to that until I actually spoke to people that are playing this game for the first time and they've never played OG. I thought this would have been awful, but I started talking to some of the people in Mandy's community and, well, our community that actually never played the OG, and they started explaining things and describing things, and I'm like, that's how I felt. That's how I felt the first time. That's exactly what I was feeling. And it's weird because somehow Square has captured the entire essence of playing OG for the first time in a completely new game.
That's a fair point.
Yeah, that is a very, very good point.
I'm very shocked that people even understand the
Right.
story.
They probably don't. I don't want to insult their intelligence either,
No.
because they probably did pick up on a lot of things, but I think they didn't pick
Yeah.
up on a lot of things also.
But what did we know at this point in the OG? Nothing.
Nothing.
No, but we got the whole
Absolutely
story though.
nothing.
That's the point. We got the whole
But
story.
we're
in the
not
end.
we're not done with the whole story yet.
That's my point. That's why we're talking about Final Fantasy VII Remake, the game that we've just played,
Yeah.
the full game that we've just played.
I'm just thinking there's so much that is a callback to the OG and needs knowledge of the OG to
Yeah.
fully understand.
That's what I'm saying.
But if they don't explain that, because they don't need to, everything's different anyway, then that will just always be over their heads until they play the OG, you know?
They won't even
Right.
realize that it's references and that there's more to those things. They kind of just maybe, oh, I guess that's just how it is. And they might not question it. They might be questioning the other stuff.
I guess that's just the nature of the beast, I suppose, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
Well,
for sure.
so near the end of the game, we start seeing flashbacks of Zack. And
Yes.
what does a newcomer think? You know, who is this guy?
Yeah, we've never seen him. We've never seen him the whole game, and then this guy is supposed to be an important
The
person
end.
at the
The
very end of the
ending.
game. Like, who is this dude, and why is he so important, right? But you don't get to see that.
Well, I don't think they should. I don't think anyone who hasn't played the original first should know who Zack is.
No one who played the original would know who Zack is. Zack isn't even really brought up in the original game. It's only in Crisis Core and other games of that nature that you know.
Oh, well, he's definitely brought up. You get in a very extended scene.
But you don't know the impact Zack has. I mean, really, I feel like if I just played the remake, I would get just about the same. Like, I mean, he carries Cloud away, so we know he's Cloud's friend. He's in the fight.
You get a lot in the original.
I disagree. You get a lot in the original. It's just very
I
subtly
agree.
done. You literally know that because of Zack, Cloud survived Nibelheim. Hojo experimented on them. Zack takes a kind of like almost comatose Cloud up all the way to just outside Midgar, where where Zack is brutally murdered to save Cloud, and then we see that Cloud eventually makes it to Midgar and is pretty much fucked up until Tifa finds him. We get all that even in the original. They just expand on it a lot more in Crisis Core.
I mean, you also meet his parents.
I feel like we got exactly that same feeling in this one. I mean, even without playing the OG personally. I think that you could have gathered that kind of information just from that last scene alone, almost.
Very disagree.
No, definitely
with
not.
that.
I hard
I
disagree.
don't think so. You need to ask someone that hasn't played it.
We do see Zack carrying Cloud, right?
Yeah, but you think,
in the
why are they
remake.
there? How are they there? What happened before then? You don't see any. Like, why is Shinra going after these two dudes? Why do they want to kill them?
Are they old war buddies? Is that what they are? Like, yeah.
Well, no. But hold on. This is still the beginning. This is just the beginning of a whole story. So this is just a glimpse at what happened. We don't need the full background of Zack right now.
But what I'm saying is, why do people think that he's important?
Oh, no, I just mean...
Right, they know
it's
he's
not the
important,
full
they just
story.
don't know why. So
Yeah.
it raises questions.
And they shouldn't know why. I think I would like it even less if they know why at this point.
No, but at least hint to it a lot more than just literally put him in the end.
They did.
Oh, I don't think so. I think that would be too much. Like that's like saying that you want to know all of Sephiroth's motivations at the beginning, and
Well, but
there's
but Sephiroth is
I think
seen a lot more
you know
throughout the
he
game.
says-
You get to see him
Yeah.
more. He's hinted at more. He's mentioned more. Zack, you don't even know his name apart from the subtitles where it says Zack and his lines at the bottom.
But in OG, you didn't know who Zack was at this point in the game. Why would we know any differently now?
No, but there could be references to him. So you go, "Who's that? Zack? I've heard that name before."
I don't think
right?
there should be. I don't think there's any reason for us to know
I don't
who
think it's
Zack is right
necessary.
now if we haven't played the original.
Right, but they shouldn't. What I'm saying is they shouldn't make such a huge deal at the end
I don't
of the
think-
FMV. It's a huge
Right.
deal.
I'm
It's
think-
made a huge deal
Yeah.
because of the end.
Yeah, because there's more story to tell.
Right.
Right, it's to allure people into the next part. I mean, it does exactly what it needs to do. And honestly, and I know this for a fact, there's no way we knew any more than we know in this one. We probably know more in the remake about Zack by the end of Midgar than we knew
Like
at
that
the
he
end
exists.
of Midgar in OG.
The end of Midgar was 12 hours into the original, though.
How much more? Do we just know that Zack exists? I don't know, we know,
We know at the end of the original, at the end of Midgar, you know nothing about what's happening in the game.
Yeah.
We know right now, if we are new to the series, we know that Zack is a person who knew Cloud. That's all we know.
Yeah, that's all we know,
Yeah,
really.
literally.
It's-
Exactly. Do we need more information than that, though?
I agree with you, CYNICA. I don't think we do.
It's not the more information, it's just it's not an ending sort of story that I'm used to, where you make such a big moment over a character
You don't know. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
A thing
So
about.
it is interesting because I feel like Zack is there for fans of the original as the big shocking moment.
For sure, yeah,
Definitely.
definitely. That's what I'm alluding to here. That's definitely not something that's a huge. It might be a huge thing because of the mystery, but for newcomers, that it wouldn't be as impactful as obviously fans of the original. That's a massive. That is probably one of the biggest things that happen at the end of the game.
I mean, you gotta also think, it's not only that, but, they also know that this guy is fighting with this Buster Sword. I thought I used
Yes,
that
the
Buster
Buster Sword is key.
Sure, yeah, definitely, and
Yeah.
he's wearing. I mean, yeah, it's a soldier uniform, but he's wearing the same things as Cloud is
Right.
with the same sword.
Yeah. I mean,
Right.
you don't necessarily know if you're brand new to Final Fantasy VII that isn't just the soldier.
No, because it's
get-up,
different.
right?
It's-
You get a Buster Sword.
Yeah.
You get a Shinra outfit. You don't know that's not a thing, right?
Plus, the other soldiers that you see, as in Roche, has a completely different outfit to what Cloud and Zack are wearing. So yeah, he's wearing the same thing, and we're using the same sword as Cloud. What's going on?
If you don't know the story, I think it's just kind of a point of intrigue for you. I think
Right.
you would see this guy and be like, okay, this guy's going to be important, and
Sure.
that's probably about it.
Yeah, that's fine. I just like if I'm imagining like if the OG came out, I don't think I'd be impressed if it came out in parts. Like I got disc 1. I don't think I'd be impressed with a disc 1 ending with a character I've never met.
Right.
I don't think I'd be personally like intrigued. I think I'd just be like mad.
I was like, who is this guy? Why is this the end of the game?
I don't know you. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
I mean, the OG was not released individually over the course of years. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
But it was still segmented. I mean, we still had disc 1 and disc 2, and they didn't perfectly align in any way, shape, and form. I mean,
For sure, but the endings of each disc were about characters we knew.
I think it works well. That's all I'm going to say.
That's fine. It's just different strokes for different folks.
Yeah, it's not
me
like
personally. If it was
definitive.
even a different game, I don't like this sort of thing where it's like. I want to talk about Final Fantasy XIII's ending, but I definitely won't because Mandy is still to play it. But
Right. Try to be
it
vague.
reminds me a lot of that. Yeah, try to be vague. There's a similar sort of situation that happens in that, and I'm just like, I don't like these sorts of endings
yeah.
where they introduce a brand new concept at the end.
And you're
right?
supposed to accept it that that's just how it is.
Accept it, right? Yeah, or wait for the next part. That'll be. Oh, you'll know later.
Right, it comes back to impact, the same as people dying and then coming back. Like, it's not as impactful.
Yeah, it's like it's fine. Like I'm intrigued at stories and sequels when they're like, oh, what's going to happen next? But I'm not intrigued by, like if they just introduce a crazy new thing at the very end. Like I'd be like, oh, that's just frustrating.
Coming back to the original, at the end of Midgar, right, you have President Shinra and he's murdered by Sephiroth. But at that point, you've never seen Sephiroth in the whole game, right? He's been mentioned a couple of times at most. But you're kind of like, so this huge thing happens that this boss or this villain that you've been going after the whole game is suddenly murdered by this other entity that you have never seen. And it's like a huge deal, right? And they kind of hint at how, like, the history they had with him, and that is such a huge, powerful figure. Then you leave Midgar and you kind of like, okay, now we have to go after him because it's such a big threat. And that just drives you to like carry on with the story, right? With intrigue.
See, I think like if I'm being fair, if Final Fantasy VII OG was split into parts and I had to wait years, and they ended it right then where Sephiroth's like name is dropped, he's killed Shinra. Oh, wait for next part. I'd hate it. If they ended it after Calm, where you learn Sephiroth's story, then I'm intrigued. Then I'm like, oh, I like that, right? That's the difference.
Yeah. So that whole point of Midgar, it's the transition from Shinra being the villain to Sephiroth. The whole transition from the end of that, going to Calm, getting that flashback, and you're like, holy shit, this game is completely different to what I thought it was going to be the first 12 hours that I've just played, right?
Right.
You don't get that with the end of Remake. You just see Zack, and that's the end of the game. You're kind of like, okay, I guess I'll just wait 4 years to find anything out about him.
Yeah, maybe we're in the minority in that one.
Yeah, probably. It leaves a slight sour taste in my mouth, but I know who he is, so it's not a huge deal.
So Zack is alive. I know there are people who think that he's not necessarily alive, that right after what we see in the ending, he dies somehow.
But I mean, we see that he's alive, though. What's the point of showing that then if he's going to die anyway?
Well, that's what I think. So I think definitely Zack is alive, and this is why I think there are multiple timelines. Because, I mean, we've changed time, and the original still exists, where everything happened that we know happened. But now we're in a separate timeline where things have started changing. And this is where it gets confusing, because I don't think Zack is alive in the timeline that we just played. So in that whole timeline, I think Zack is dead.
Right, so there has to be a third timeline where he's alive. Yeah.
So now I think there are 3 timelines, yes. And then who's alive in that world? So in which world is Jesse alive? In which world do we see Biggs waking up in the end? You know?
So something of interest to note is whenever we go through the portal to fight the last big bad, we notice as soon as we go through the portal that the entire world is exactly the same. But we appear in a different location. I would assume that by entering that portal, and you also have to think, like, at the very end, Sephiroth slices the portal and it invites you in. What does Aerith do to the portal? Like, you have to think there has to be... She cleanses it somehow, but what does that do? So I assume by entering that portal, we're entering a different, whatever, dimension, universe.
So.
I agree. It's the subtle knife.
Yes, it's a subtle knife, exactly.
So, I agree. There has to be at least 3.
Which of the 3 timelines do we care about the main characters? Number 1, number 2, number 3. Which one?
I think the middle one
is the most important.
I think...
Yeah, but that's the whole point that makes it silly. Like, why do we care about one and not the others, right?
So if we call timeline 1 OG timeline, I think
Yes.
that's the least important at this point.
Yeah, I think that story is told. We're done with that.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. And then I think the one where we're following the party, timeline 2, is the most important. And I guess timeline 3 might be a what-if story. You know, a what if Zack never died sort of thing.
Why do we need what if stories if it's not going to impact the main story, though?
I don't know.
So,
I don't know.
that's
I
what
have
don't
no
agree
answers.
with. Yeah, I just, and maybe they're just going in a completely different direction. This is all speculation, obviously, but like, it doesn't make me want to care about it.
Yeah, I think there are interesting ways of handling this. I do think that we will come into contact at some point with the Zack that's in timeline 3, because why would he exist otherwise? I mean, there's no point.
Exactly. That's
But
yeah. There's no point of having a what if.
I wonder kind of if it'll be just something brief and not that we're living in that timeline or that we have access to that timeline permanently, but it's just something that shows up. Maybe there's a boss fight. Maybe we fight Zack, something like that. Or maybe we get to fight alongside Zack or something, but it's just temporary.
I would hate that. I just don't want Zack to be with Cloud at all. Basically.
Well, I don't think it'll be a big happy reunion. I don't think we're going to see Aerith and Zack going off into the sunset and Cloud be their best man at their wedding. Like, I don't think that's what we're going to see.
Because I think that's a lot of people hope.
No, I don't think we'll see that. I feel very confident we won't. I think in the end it'll be Zack and Aerith are supposed to die. Either it'll be they have to die because they have to die, or it's a life for a life. Someone else has to die in their place.
Right, yeah. The only thing I worry about with Zack being a more prominent character is what harm it'll do to Cloud's character. And his sort of diminished role.
That's my main issue.
Oh, I am actually so intrigued by that. To see
my
Cloud,
main
who is
issue.
struggling with his identity and his own reality and who he is as a person, come face to face with Zack from an alternate timeline. That would be so interesting to me.
All right. Okay, cool. Yeah, maybe.
There is a much more cynical approach that it could, because I don't know if Cloud is necessarily alive in the timeline that we saw Zack, because we saw him very much injured, and honestly, very much worse for the wear. And I hate to say it, but what if this is just them selling another game?
You mean that Cloud survives and then Zack survives and then Cloud kind of like dies before they get to Midgar?
Yes, and then it's not an alternate timeline in 7 Remake. It's just an alternate timeline for a
Zack
spin-off
story
where we play as Zack.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Could be.
So like Crisis Core Part 2, basically, right?
Exactly.
Well, yeah, Crisis Core 2.
Then I think it's just not canon at that point.
No,
Right.
it would be just like because I mean, that would then say is Crisis Core canon to the overall.
Well, we've been told it's not anymore.
It's the Marvel effect, you know. It's literally it's just another universe within our current canon universe, and that's fine, and that's something that I think it would be interesting to explore.
If that was a reason, I would actually be okay with it.
It is interesting. I haven't thought about that concept before, CYNICA. That's very interesting to me.
Yeah.
If it's just like a trailer at the end of Final Fantasy VII Remake for this possible
Crisis
game,
Core Part 2.
yeah, like I guess sure, but then I just think you're sending me a bit mixed messages. But if that's how it is, then I can deal with that. I don't think it is that though. I think you will take part in the.
Well,
we don't know.
I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah.
we even get like that kind of symbolism of when Aerith walks through him. Like, she feels his presence, but she moves on through him.
Right.
So it kind of, and like we've kind of been getting that same symbolism throughout the entire game.
Like
so
she's
I'm
leaving
kinda
behind
curious.
her past with Zack and carrying on with her journey.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
I kind of saw it, as them missing each other and what could have been
That's what
but
I thought.
wasn't. And I think we might see more of
Right.
that. Like, it's not going to be
I
them
hope.
meeting up and having a great reunion. And it's going to be more sad than it is happy, I think, if they do meet
Like
up.
living separate lives away from each other.
Yeah.
If they're taking Crisis Core as like canon, then I'm really not even into the Zack Aerith relationship because I think it's really bad in Crisis Core, and I felt nothing
Yeah.
for them. So I hope it's better
I
than
disagree.
that. I just
But
didn't
it kind
like
of
them.
makes sense because they were both young, though, right? So it's
No,
like a
Zack
kinda
was like
naive kind of-
21 or something, or 8. Like.
Okay,
That's
you don't
pretty
call
young.
that young, that I don't know how to feel right now.
Right, but like Aerith was what, 17, and then Zack was like 19, 20, something like that. That's like our party's age right now. I don't know really if that's an excuse.
Well, that's why Cloud is how Cloud is, well, among other things. Just immature.
We know one thing for absolute certain, and that is that we are definitely existing alongside, if not inside, the Advent Children universe. We know that for certain.
Yes. Now, would you say that Crisis Core is part of that universe?
We don't know that. We don't know that for sure.
I mean, if you include Advent Children, you may as well include Dirge Cerberus and Crisis Core. Why
For that-
not at that point?
Leona, this means Genesis is a thing.
Fine, whatever.
Well,
I don't-
except that they
don't-
did tell us before 7 Remake came out that the compilation is not necessarily canon for the remake, which gives them license to change things.
Yes, they did say that, but that's I think that's I don't think that's exactly them throwing the whole thing out. Oh, it's
Right.
not canon, just don't pay attention. I think it's like we will pick and choose the things we like from these compilations. Yeah.
I was suspecting that Zack was going to be alive before I finished the game, just based on things in the fandom that I saw going around. I didn't have like a spoiler like Zack is still alive. I just saw how popular Zack was suddenly.
He was
and-
being mentioned a
Yes.
lot. Yeah,
Yes,
right.
and I did see mention of characters not being dead when we thought they were dead. Then that could have been a reference to many things. But I was very
Exactly.
suspicious that Zack would still be alive. And I was like, okay, this is why the creators told us to throw Crisis Core out the window. What is going to happen at the end of this game?
Yeah, canonically, he's dead. And now he's not. Yeah, so they'll choose to include a lot of things from the compilation, but we can't take the compilation as canon because things have already happened in those stories.
I do want to make the distinction here that Zack did die. That at the beginning of this game, when we see Cloud, when we're introduced to Cloud, Zack is dead at that point because that's how Cloud is the way he is.
Right. Yeah, and that's the start of the OG as well as the start of the remake is this. That's the setting. Zack is dead. Cloud is in Midgar.
Aerith very specifically talks about her dead boyfriend on several occasions, so we know Zack's gone.
Does she say dead? Does she say dead? Aerith doesn't know in the OG that Zack is even dead.
Yeah, she just hasn't heard from him in a long time.
She says, "You remind me of somebody that." I mean, it is very,
No,
very
I think it's more
hinted in.
implied that she does not think he's dead and that he just dumped her.
She just doesn't know.
Yeah, when
Yeah.
you go to Gongaga and meet her parents, that's when Aerith learns that he's not even been in contact with his parents,
Right.
and that's when she starts to
Like
suspect
maybe
that
it's something
happens.
else. Yeah, exactly. She's never explicitly said, or she never explicitly accepts that he's dead. Just that she hasn't heard from him in a long time and doesn't know anything about him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like when in the park, whenever she's talking to Cloud, whenever she's expressing like how he reminds her of Zack, I don't know. There's no part of me that can believe that the girl that was explaining a past love
but
to the extent that she was.
I think she's moved
doesn't
on
believe
from
he's
him,
gone.
but without the knowledge that he's dead, just that he's not part of her life anymore. That kind of thing. It's behind her because it's her past, not because he's gone forever.
I mean, ultimately, it's not that important.
Right,
one
yeah.
way
It's
or
just
the
that
other.
Zack is not part of Eric's life, whether he's dead or just
Yeah.
not part of her life. It just isn't.
If he's gone, he's gone.
Yeah, he's just gone.
if it's inclusive of the Advent Children universe, which I'm assuming at least that it is. I mean, at the very end of Advent Children, they are together in the live stream. Like that is a thing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, because when Aerith dies, then she kind of knows the truth because you get the knowledge of the live stream, and she is a powerful ancient, right? So she would have found out what happened to Zack when she died, which is fine.
Also, we're assuming that this Aerith doesn't know that information already, which we're assuming that she does because she knows freaking everything.
And the expression, like the part that you said, the scene where she kind of walks past Zack.
Yes.
Like I think that can also be explained at the realization of what happens to him, or what happened to him, and now is happening because he's alive. I don't know.
I think Aerith knows a lot more right now than she did at this point in the original. And yeah, I think for sure she knows that Zack is dead in the remake.
Dead and alive, though.
Dead
now.
and alive.
She knows both,
Right.
I think.
Right.
We have so much to look forward to in future parts, though, and I don't even know what to think. Like, part of me does think they're going to stick closer to the original than maybe we're assuming. But then at the same time, there is so much that they could do and not stick to the original. Like,
Yeah.
it's really
leaving it
open and up in the air.
I'd love to hear what you guys'
Now the time rates
craziest
are gone.
theory for like the future would be. Like, you're absolutely anything can happen sort of thing.
On
Yeah.
crazy theories. That's why I haven't been making them.
Right, there's what you think will happen, and then there's what you hope will happen.
Right, exactly.
I'd say what I think would happen. I can do that one, but not what I hope would happen. But what I think all in all, unfortunately, I think it is going to be tied pretty close to the original. I think if they do decide to have Zack in the universe that we're currently in, I think Aerith has to go. I don't want her to go. I don't want that to happen, but I think she does. And I think the only way that happens is in a very poetic and very Square Enix thing to do by making her sacrifice herself for the one she loves.
Okay.
So
Right.
that is the only way I can see that. So something along those lines, I think has to
Yeah,
happen.
I could actually even see them dying together.
Oh, no.
Yes, correct.
Don't. I don't want that to happen.
The twofer!
No, just okay. So my reaction is not because I can't deal with it. It's that I don't want that to happen because I think it's terrible.
Yes.
That right. So the whole point of it's down to impact again. I think it would lessen the impact so much by having Zack survive and then just die with Aerith just for the shock factor. That would be, in my opinion, the worst case scenario.
You're not wrong.
I don't know. I wouldn't hate it. I don't know if I'm into it, but I don't know if I'd hate it.
I would hate it probably. I would definitely hate it.
I think we'll get to a point where all the timelines, if there is timelines, will all converge, and there'll be like 3 Sephiroths. There'll be
No, please no.
Genova will have fused with all the other Genovas into like a super Genova.
Right, that sounds very Final Fantasy, actually. You know what?
Right, that's what I think will happen. I think actually we'll get to a sort of time compression sort of world will happen where all the realities will converge and we'll have Super Saiyan Cloud, Super Saiyan Tifa.
And then with the power of friendship, Cloud and Zack do Giga Slash together and defeat Genova, some shit.
And then we'll beat the ultimate universal evil, which is Sephiroth, Genova, Genesis fused into one giant being. And then as the realities sort of re-separate, it'll be the best of all worlds, right? Zack and Aerith are together, and the planet is healthy, and that's where I think it'll go.
That's a very good theory.
I am very much on board with everything except the end of what you just said. No, but I think that you're exactly right. I think you've solved what they're going to do for the build-up of, the big boss fight at the end. I think you're exactly right with that, this time compression, all these worlds existing at once, and then once we defeat the big bad, because we realize now you can't change time, you can't mess with things have to go back to equilibrium. But I do think it will be different. I don't think it's going to be happy ending. I think it will be a very sad ending.
Okay, it's very Final Fantasy anyway. Either way, that
is.
sort of thing. It wouldn't be out of the realms of Final Fantasy's sort
I
of.
agree
shtick
with
to
that.
do
Yeah.
And I'm fine with that because that is very Final Fantasy. We all love it. It's good. That is fine. We're open to change. We know it's going to be different. And that's fine because it's not going to be at all like the end of the original. But my hope is that the journey to that point,
Right.
it's the same notes as the original did, though.
Yeah, I hope it's not that at the end it's like, oh no, everything has to get restored to OG, and then it shows like Aerith being like whisked away into the live stream because she has to be,
Yeah.
or it's like Final
She
Fantasy
has to be
X.
dead.
Like, I just hope it doesn't end like that. I think it will be
I agree.
a huge thing like what Leona just described, and then it will get resolved into kind of what the world was supposed to be. But I even think that Aerith will already be dead at that point. But we'll see.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll see. It was very interesting to think about either
yeah,
way.
it is. Yeah.
What I don't want to happen with it, we're going with that scenario that Leona mentioned.
But the canon scenario.
It is.
That is now
It is
canon.
what's going to happen.
Right. So with that, what I don't want to happen, which is again spoiler alert for 13, but more like 13-2 and Lightning Returns, that they go with this whole
Should I take off my headphones?
gods, maybe
Just be very subtle.
like yeah, just like gods and stuff. Like because we have
Right.
what's her face in Crisis called? Oh, what's her name?
Sesame.
The goddess.
Oh, right. Oh, bloody... I don't remember her name.
Minerva.
Minerva.
Yeah, we get like
yeah.
Minerva, and then we're fighting for Minerva. We're going against Genova and Sephiroth, and they're like, like the devil. While Minerva is like the goddess, and we're fighting for good against evil. I don't want that.
No, that's... Yeah, I agree. I like the sort of morally grey area that Final
Right.
Fantasy VII kind of operates in, and I don't want it to be good versus evil.
You're doing for the ultimate good, but the way or the things that you
Yeah,
do
you get
might
there in
not
a dirty
be the
way,
best.
sort of
Yeah,
thing.
the
Yeah.
way to do things. Fair enough. Yeah, that's what I hope they go with that.
I think so. I hope so.
Wow, we have talked so much about this game.
We have...
It's been very good to get all these thoughts out finally. Any closing thoughts on Final Fantasy VII Remake?
Just that I am going to get it, I am going to play it, and I'm going to go in with the openest mind I can, and I promise.
Yeah, I agree. Same.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I think we've come to terms now with what we didn't like, especially about the ending. Like,
Yeah.
that is how it is. We can't do anything about it. So let's not begrudge the game or what the direction it's
Right.
going in, and just like keep an open mind. We could very much end up enjoying it just as much as the original. Who knows? It'll just be a different story. So yeah, I'm definitely going to play part 2, and I'm looking forward to it a lot because that means we can have more of these discussions.
Right?
There we go.
I think it's a great game, and I think it's still a fantastic game, and I still love it. And I think it has so much potential to still be even, I won't say as good or better than the original, but completely different in its own
Yeah.
thing. And I think that's awesome in
Yeah,
its
it
own
could
right.
be a good game regardless of its history.
Right.
Completely agree with you. And I just love all of the conversations that this game has brought up and, bringing people into Final Fantasy that maybe would never have played it otherwise. And I just think that's awesome.
Right.
It's such a good
Yeah.
series, and I love to see new people being introduced to it. I'm a new person to the series, and I'm so happy that I decided to play these games. They're amazing.
I am too.
You are too.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We can
And-
all agree to that. Yeah.
Yeah, and even whether if you don't like how Final Fantasy VII is, don't try and scare off the newcomers to the series. Let them love it or let them hate it. Let them just come to their own
Yeah,
opinions.
let
on
them
it,
experience it for themselves. Yeah, that's. I
Exactly.
think you can apply that to all video games.
We're not sitting here trying to tell you what to think
Yeah.
about the game.
Not at all.
It's just a conversation, and how it might make you think of some things you never thought of, or it might might have an answer that we don't have, that sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely.
But it was just definitely like a very fun discussion.
I agree.
Extremely.
Oh, yeah, I had a blast.
And we could just go on and on about it. To be honest, there's so much more that we could speak about.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining me for this discussion, and to everyone listening, thank you for tuning in. Hopefully there are more of these podcasts and discussions to come. This has been a lot of fun and a very good experience for the first episode, I think. So if you want to contact us, this is going up on YouTube. This is probably where you're watching it. So feel free to leave comments in the section below. And please follow us on social media. Check out our streams if you're interested. I'm on Twitter at Mandersnatch. I'm also on Twitch, Mandersnatch as well. Leona?
I'm on Twitter as Star Mongoose, all one word, and my Twitch channel is Star Mongoose RPG Fan.
Yeah, I'm also on Twitter with GRIEVER46, 13 instead of IE, and the same on Twitch TV, GRIEVER13 instead of IE.
And you can find me on just about any social media, including Snapchat, at CYNICA Gaming.
You don't even know what you just opened up.
Oh, you don't even know.
Oh, I do. Oh, I do. I want to see whatever you want to send me, people. Let's do it.
All right. Well, thank you all again for joining me, and to everyone listening, thank you as well. And we will see you next time. Take care.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Hopefully. Bye.
Bye. That was so fun! We did it!
Nailed it. I know. Thank you. Moving on.